First, let's do a sound check. Testing, testing, testing. 462. All right, wait for us to come up on YouTube. All right, good to go. Hey guys, welcome back to another stream. For those that catch it live, I appreciate you being here, and for those that catch it on playback, I appreciate you as well. Hope your weekend was good. Fairly eventful. I found that I got a beaver in my lake, so I have to figure that out. Well, I kind of already did. I bought some traps, and I'm going to work on trapping it, and then I might have to gut it like a fish. But yeah, you got to get rid of beavers in a lake, because what they'll do is they'll either mess up your drainage or actually start digging holes in your retention walls and cause your lake to drain out, which has already happened here previously. So I got to protect that. And previous owners had to go through it and cost them like $5,000, and that really because a lot of rain. Excuse me. So yeah, I had to deal with that. Also broke the past 320, so got down to 319.6. So that's cool. Still working to get to 300, hopefully by the end of the month. But we're doing well with that. In terms of API stuff or anything else that's going on, we've been doing well with the API. Been working with Coinbase. As always, we start off with a little bit of a picture here. This one is pretty cool. I like this one. Got artist by the name of Navarra. I don't think I'll probably like save this or anything like that, but actually no, Furio. Oh, whoa. Oh, this is Tigra. Okay, I thought this was Lionel for a second, but I totally forgot. Yo, this is sick. Yo, this guy's good. I wonder if he's got any more in this series. It doesn't. Is that Batman? Batman Beyond. Yo, they really should make like a Batman Beyond movie for sure. Like non-animated. That should be another series. This is really cool. This is a really good take on Batman Beyond. Like that should definitely be a part of The Dark Knight. Okay. I'm not a big Batman fan, like a friend of mine is, but pretty cool. Metal Gear Solid. Okay. Snake looking. He looks a little bit more Japanese here. I'd say, like, or even Iranian or something like that. Middle Eastern. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Oh wow. All right. But yeah, really cool here. Is this a chicken? Oh wow, Monsanto GM chicken. Whoa. Yeah, this is GMO chicken. GM Chuck. But yeah, this artist is Furio Tedeschi, CG artist. Really good stuff. Yeah, definitely gonna download some more of that stuff. I like what he did with this Thundercats Tigra. I really wish there was like I wish I could see what he did with Lionel or anything like that. Wrong turn. Oof, that's some Resident Evil looking stuff there. Ouch. Kind of scary. All right. So where we left off, we were working with the Coinbase API and using, writing a function so that we can get all of this information. I was having issues with the with asynchronous calls and putting those together. Let me just minimize this. Putting those together and getting them like always getting all results every single time. One thing I do need to do is work with pagination. I get away with it because in this API, it gives you pages of all the different accounts and coins and stuff like that. So if I had well over 25 coins, because it only gives you the result of 25 coins at a time in terms of your wallet. If I had like 100 something coins, then I would have to do a lot more. And we do want to make this thing a little bit more flexible. We wanted to make sure that it catches all just in case anything happens, and we don't have to go back and change code or anything else like that. Now, that does mean that we have to do more in terms of API calls, which really isn't much of an issue. You just have to do an async call within an async call, or sorry, an Axios API call within an Axios API call. But we got pretty this one here. So with this one here, let's see. All right, what are we going to do? We want to look at, let's look at server controller. So we're using a coding paradigm here. Been watching Invincible, by the way. I binged that whole series this weekend. That was really good. But yeah, I wanted to put that out there. It's like, I think it's this one. Which one is the one that I was just using? Okay, there we go. All right, cool. So let's look at model view controller. And this is the, I call it program paradigm, but it's really, what is it? Design pattern. So there's a model view controller design pattern. So let's go ahead and read a little bit more about that. And let me go ahead and post this actually in the chat so you guys can go ahead and read it later. So, Model View Controller, usually MVC, is a software design pattern commonly used for developing user interfaces that divides the related programming logic into three interconnected elements. This is done to separate internal representations of information from the ways information is presented to and accepted from the user. So essentially with the MVC, you have three sections. You have the model, which deals with backend databases. You have the view, which deals with the front end, such as your front end client side JavaScript and any elements on the page itself. And then you have the controller. The controller interacts with the model and then also accepts information from the view side. So if anything, if we were to probably put it in like order, the view is what the client would see. So actually, let's. So you would have it in this flow here. So we'd have the user. The user interacts with the view. The view interacts with the controller. The controller interacts with models. Right. And then the same thing, and then it goes backwards as well. So, or it goes through those same levels as well. That's mainly how you do it. In some cases, of course, the user will interact directly with the controller, especially if they're doing API calls through something like, you can cut out the view portion of it because you don't have anything that is client side or dictating the view. If you're using something like Postman here, where we're making calls to our API endpoint, and we just do a send, because we're just doing a simple get request. There's nothing that this requires. This doesn't require anything in the body itself or anything else like that. I can go ahead and take this out, still make this request, and get a response. One thing I do want to add to this is probably a timestamp here, and probably a couple other things now that I think about it. But in this, we can see that the balance of my portfolio is 38 grand. Oh yeah. So I've been doing pretty well with cryptocurrencies lately, and yeah, I've been hitting on all-time highs and things like that. XLM, $10,000, even with all that I've sold off. Also, that looks like a little bit more of a all-time high there as well. I'm not sure if it ever hit 80 cents or anything like that. And Cardano's doing its thing at 1.7, 1.8 almost. And Ethereum, we're looking at 41 grand. It's probably hit 42 to be honest, but yeah, doing pretty well. And I've already staked all my Ethereum, which is why it shows up as ETH2. But now at this point, I can actually use this, and this is me interacting directly with the controller via an API endpoint. That controller doesn't do anything with models because I don't save anything to the database, but this is why we talk about our schemas and doing things like that, or working with things like that. All right, so, but in terms of like model view controller, if I go back to this model, the central component of the pattern, it is the application dynamic data structure independent of user interface. It directly manages the data, logic, and rules of the application. Interesting. Not how I use it. Any representation And when it says rules, meaning like you can define schemas here, which we'll go over, and that's a part of what it does. But when it says logic, I do most of my logic in the controller. View, any representation of information, such as a chart, diagram, table, multiple views of the same information as are possible, such as a bar chart for management and tabular view for accounts. So if we go Stev, oh wow, I know this is Mega Man. No, this is Iron Man. Oof, I don't really like the way that looks. All right, so if I do MGS, if I go to this template that I'm going to be using, all of this, of course, as you can see, is the view. But the data, most likely, like once you have all this data will be pulled from your database via your model. So, and it'll be stored in your database via your model. So if you're retrieving anything, it's going to be via the model. If you're if you're actually putting anything into your database, your structure is going to be defined by your model itself. So let's actually show you a little bit of that. And we'll go over our schema and then also a little bit of validation. I always talk about the Joy library. So here I've defined a schema for accounts. In this schema, I'm going to be using the mongoose driver so I can interact with MongoDB. MongoDB itself is a document-oriented NoSQL database, and essentially what it means is it saves everything in a document. Those documents are, I think it's like BSON data, or BJSON. But essentially, it takes this data and it takes the data in the form of a JSON object and it saves it. Now, this data, in some cases, you can index to make it a little bit faster to traverse or do search through if you ever needed to. But for the most part, all of this stuff is data that I can put anything in any collection of data or buckets, if you will. And I don't have to define a table or column structure or a row or column structure, or I should say a column structure where I fill it with rows of data. I could put anything anywhere. I can take the account schema and the user schema information and all those rules that are applied and put them in just about anything I wanted to within my NoSQL document-based database. Now, I don't do that. I usually separate things into different collections, and then that allows me to do whatever I need to on each collection as necessary. Maybe even define things like what would I define? Maybe I even define things such as maybe I define things such as mm, like maybe an index or something like that, or maybe I define that there's certain rules in terms of the amount of time in which data is stored. Maybe I have garbage collection or auto expiration of data and things like that. So that's what I would use. I would use something like this or this schema or a collection and apply certain rules to a collection as needed. Also, I can actually have code that will go through and do whatever I need to in a logic sense or a logical sense, if you will. Sir Anthony, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for showing up, man. Thank you for just joining us here. If you have any questions or anything like that, let me know, brother. Yeah, it's just me and you in the chat right now. But yeah, for those that do join, man, I do appreciate you all coming in and taking your time out of your day to actually listen to me and learn from it as well. It's all about building communities and building people around you and making them better so you all can actually work together to make one another better. So in this case, we can see that I have an account schema, and no, MongoDB is a schemaless database, or it has a schemaless database design. With that database design, you don't have to define an actual schema. So I can just say, I can have name or names. The keys in the JSON objects don't always have to be the same. But what you can do with Mongoose is actually design a schema to where you can actually have all that information in there, and you can even go schemaless as well. Always have to salute the Always have to salute the chat. Just here to enjoy the code. Hey man, I'm glad you're here for that, bro. We're gonna go over schemas tonight, which is, you know, it's a part of coding and something that I'm starting to get used to as well. But in terms of the schema design, in this case, I'm actually defining a schema. So this is like me defining my columns in a database table, but I don't have to always adhere to this. I can also break out of this if I ever need to. I can also set defaults to where I only input certain information, and then the rest of the information, such as UUIDs, are actually defaulted and put in there for me. So I don't have to worry about that type of stuff. So in this case, Daniel Tucker, oh snap. What's the oh snap for, bro? Oh snap, schemas. All right. In this case, I probably want to prepend my UUID with something. So, in this case, we're going to use a template literal. So this actually gets rendered in, or just gets a string is produced out of this. Yeah, MongoDB, man, that's my DB of choice. That's what I use. But in this case, using the Mongo database driver and user schema. Let's see here, user ID required true, username, user ID. Now the user ID, what is that? What do we want that to be? Enter user ID. So let's make that UID. I took this code from something else that I was working on. So we're going to do this. And as I said, you can define schemas if you wanted to. And with you defining schemas, you can do things like, okay, this is required, this is not required, so on and so forth. Most of these things I require, and some things I will not require or don't really need. In this case, I'm just kind of defining my schema and then creating a UUID in this case for each one of these entries. I like UUIDs because then they allow you to uniquely identify something if you needed to, or if you need to write anything to the database, you can actually sign or put in information saying that, hey, this person with this UUID, which resolves to this user, made this change. So that's just something that's really nice to actually have, and it offers a layer of protection, if you will, accountability, and a way for users, or a way for you to actually track what a user is doing where necessary. So they don't necessarily have to see that their user ID is signing all of their changes, or being saved along with all their changes. But it's nice to actually have, maybe you have an array of user IDs or something like that. So, so we got our user schema here. Once that model is defined, then we're going to use mongoose.model, and then we're just going to assign that to a variable, and then we're going to use the module.exports to actually export that variable. Now, we did a little bit of a side there, but we're going to go back to our model view controller and talk a little bit more about that. So I went over a little bit about the model view controller design pattern. I like to call it paradigm, but it's not really that. It just sounds fancier, I guess. But we were on view. So model is what we kind of just went over in terms of looking at the schema. View, a representation of information such as charts, diagrams, or tables. So for instance, what you're seeing here in this template that I have here, and this is what I'll be actually using as my front end. So we can actually make this data be represented and look a little bit prettier. As I said, we were able to fix the issue where, all three of these things, the inconsistency in the return of the data here, and then we get like the full portfolio balance and everything else like that. So we're going to be working on that and actually taking this and putting it into some of these cards up here, maybe even doing like small design changes, such as this card here. I do not like the fact that I don't like the way it looks, so I'll do like border radius, and then I'll do 100 px. So we can actually go ahead and make changes to something like this, or to elements like this, and round off the side of the cards and stuff like that. So we'll go over a little bit of that when we're actually designing the front end of this here. If you guys need these templates or anything like that, let me know. I've used them for a while and used them on a lot of different things. I've gotten them from Template Monster, and they're a really good source for templates. And that's what the template I'm going to be using for one of my next projects, which will be Did I get it here? I don't have it on here. Oh no, I do have it on here. And yeah, so this is probably one of the next templates that I'm actually going to get. And I think I'm going to start a lawn care business and be doing that. So sorry to jump all over the place with this, but yeah, I think I'm going to actually take this template and then trick it out a little bit. So I'll probably use this version of the template and actually go through and actually make these this form into like an automated estimator or something like that. And you do some pretty cool stuff with backend APIs to get information about, like, somebody puts in an address, take that format. Bless me, sorry. Take that data, format it, and then send it off to a backend API, so that I can actually get, maybe even like if I can get it from like Zillow or something like that, but get information about their the lot size for their property. So if somebody comes to this, and again, this is just a cool thing about using APIs, using, you know, connecting your view side to your controller side, and then your controller has your business logic, and then you finally save that all that information wherever you need to. But this will do an auto estimation of a person's lawn and how much it's going to cost them to get cut through me. So if I can actually have them go to the auto estimator. It'll send me an information about their lawn and everything, and then maybe even link that to something like in Google Maps and do a search into that, and dealing with APIs that we actually have to pay to use. So I actually found a company that that does that type of stuff. Yeah, I forgot. I didn't save it here, but I think it's like Data Infinity or something like that, and maybe even trying to use the Zillow API to get that information as well, which was pretty cool how all that worked. In fact, do I wanna? Where is it? Let me see here if I can find the information. No, I don't think I have it on this computer. Anyways, let's get back on task. So talked about model, went a little bit over the view. Now let's look at controller. Controller for me is where I put all my business logic when I'm using the model, the MVC design pattern. So accepts input and converts it to commands for the model or view. In addition to dividing the application into these components, the model view controller design defines the interactions between them. The model is responsible for managing the data of the application. It receives user input from the controller. So for instance, the API, Express.js, and all those different endpoints that we have, that is controller level code. So for instance, I'll look in here. This is my schema. I made some changes here. Let's, uh, all right, cool, we're good. So in my controller, I have API, and then I have Coinbase. So in my Coinbase controller, it's very simple. I abstracted a lot of information out. I abstracted a lot out of this, or I abstracted a lot of different things away from this to make this code a little bit simpler and cleaner. So let's actually go to the back end here, and what is that? That was, okay, that's the core JS. So nano, server, controller, Coinbase, and then Coinbase. So as you know, we have our core functions for Coinbase. For instance, how to get certain information, how to generate a CB access token, and put all that together with all the different headers, right? So as you can see, at the end of it, this is how the call looks. But there's a lot that it builds on top of. So this is the core layer. So in the core layer, or the core set of functions, from there, I go ahead and talk to the API by doing Axios API call and set all my different headers and everything like that. I'll do an Axios get. I'll do an async function, or wrap that in an async function, so I can do an await, and then I'll return that information, that response, and then actually even have. I think I have a callback here. Do I have? I don't have a callback. This one, I guess, just didn't really need it in terms of how I was returning everything. But in some functions, you'll see where I actually have a callback function. And then I'll have an account preprocessor. So what it'll actually do is it'll go ahead and that's actually a post processor, I think. So I'll probably have to rename that. But go through all of this, and it'll take the return data and then process it, removing ID, currency asset ID, resource path, allow deposits, allow withdrawals, like the status for that, and then just return the array for me. And then we just have like an if statement here. Probably should add another condition to that, or something like that, just in case there is an issue. But I don't think that should be an issue here, because if anything, if you have an error, you shouldn't even get to this point. But we do have to review our code and look at it and start thinking about how it can actually be screwed up in some way, shape, or form, because you may not think of it, but somebody else always finds it. Don't know how. Maybe even abstract things like this here, where it says this API.coinbase. Get rid of that whole line, even the version, like the V2. Probably put that at the top so we don't have to make so many references and making so many changes. Kind of like what we did with the CB API version. The Coinbase API has multiple versions to it, so you can actually change it to like the 2016 version, which is what the module, the API fork, or the Coinbase API fork module was using. And I wanted to do something that was a little bit more up to date. So, and I wanted to use that. I wanted to use the newer version. I could have used that module and made changes to the module, but it's hard to make changes to these modules when and have those changes work with the next version or something like that, unless they give you a way to the next like a newer version, unless they give you a way to inject whatever version number you want to use into a function, like taking it as a parameter or something like that. So in this case, taking the method endpoint body and then maybe even having another parameter that says version, so I can actually insert a new or inject the string for the new version or a newer version that I want to use. And then also when you're using someone else's module code, then you might even have problems with it just not working properly. So in this case, since they haven't really done anything, I think it was like couple years, man, or something. No, I think it was a couple months. It was like 6 or 7 months that the module hadn't been updated. I did use quite a few of I did use quite a few bits of their code, and it was actually really cool and I went over this in one of my previous streams, but I had all this stuff in here. The only thing I didn't have is dividing this by 1,000, because date.now gives you the seconds since epoch or the milliseconds since epoch. So you have to actually get rid of that by just dividing it by 1,000 and then rounding it down with using math.floor. So you have math.ceil for ceiling, which is your upper limit, rounding up, and then you have math.floor, which rounds down. So yeah, I was kind of like super proud of that, even though it's like, I didn't totally figure it out, but I was like, oh, okay, I was like close. So that was really cool. But this is the core functions. And then if we go here, and then in my custom JS, you can see here where I have a couple like test functions and things like that. And then what I finally I actually produce out of this is this custom set of functions here. You know what? Let me increase this. I totally forgot to do that. If you guys ever see where it's like you can't read it or anything like that, please let me know. I usually keep it on a smaller font just so I can get more lines, and then have it on a vertical portrait monitor. So this here, I defined a res callback for my response. So when you're dealing with Axios, or not Axios, Express.js, you do a router.get. So in this case, this is going to be a get endpoint. If it's a post, put, patch, delete, whatever, it's going to be dot whatever that endpoint name is or that method is. So this is a get method. This is going to be, I've already defined where this is /API, so /API /Coinbase. And now my sub, or my, yeah, we'll call it a sub URI or sub endpoint, would be /accounts. So it'll result to looking like this once you're all said and done. So I'm writing for this endpoint here. So now if we see here, request and res, so this is the request, and then this is the response for that request. And then all I do is pass the res as the callback function. In my case, what I did is I automatically know my callback is going to be a .send. All right, so I'll do object.callback. I have an object that I pass this, or I pass to this function here, and then I'll put all of the information in here, and I'll put all the information that I need in this object. So in this case, it's defined down here. So let's look at that. So let res callback, and again, this is where I have to go back, do my documentation, fix a lot of this stuff, and make it look a lot prettier than it's supposed to be, or than it is right now, to the point where you as a person can come in and you don't have to do the mental gymnastics to figure out what the fudge was I doing, so I have to do all that, and I usually go back and get that done and get that looking a lot better. So in this case, I may actually not really need this res object thing here, so I just thought about that, but we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. Actually, no, I do, because I actually make changes to it here. So I'll take in an object, and then I'll have another object defined within it, which I don't always need that, but you'll see why I do it here. Because in this object, I'm only passing 3 things. So I go through one of my core functions, so Coinbase core.get accounts, and then I do it's a async function or asynchronous function, so I can do a then to it, or it's thenable, as I like to say. And then after that, I start doing all the things that I need to in terms of defining variables that I need to track and assigning certain information to variables. So Coinbase core get accounts preprocessor. So I have my preprocessor, and I take my response. So I process it before I go further into it. I'm taking out the IDs and taking out other information that I don't want the API to produce or even send it to the front end, because you have to also guard, even if everything's going over SSL or anything else like that, you don't want to give up information that's not, unless it's totally necessary. Unnecessary information or information that can reveal a vulnerability, try your best to only give the consumer of the API, in this case, which would be the view or the front end web client, only give it what it needs. So in some cases, what you'll do is I might get the entire payload in. I might get the entire payload here, but then maybe I'll start doing some things in here where I'll take the response and cut it down even more before I actually send the res callback. And that's just protecting the data even more, and maybe even have another preprocessor for this. Excuse me. All right, so in this case, I have the processed array. So the issue that I was running into with the inconsistency in terms of the return is that I was doing a for each or an every, and that wasn't working properly because of the nature of asynchronous code. The best way to do those things to actually have the consistency that you would expect, where it does the same thing every time, also added flexibility in terms of looping through things, is to do a for loop. In this case, I did a for loop that iterates through an array. So if I wanted to set that up, I do let p equals 0. I can define this p outside of this as well if I needed to, and only keep it to 2 parameters or 2 things in this for loop that's being defined, or 2 conditions really. So let p equals 0, and then p less than processed array dot length. So we define our processed array here after it's gone through our preprocessor, taking out information that we do not want to be passed to the rest of the function or to the endpoint. And we can also do this here at the endpoint level, but look how cute and just succinct and concise and consolidated this code is. So beautiful. Like, we don't need to put all that information out there, right? So as you can see here, if I do, let's see, where were we? process array dot length. So we're getting the length of the array. The array should be 3 items in this case because I only have 3 coins in my Coinbase account that I actually buy and sell out of. Like I said, I only deal with the top 10. I don't deal with the shit coins as they're called or the altcoins anymore. I stay away from those. I only deal with the top 10. There are problems when you start dealing with all these different altcoins, especially when these projects die. It's hard to get your money out if you ever can, and you always have to stay on top of it. Depending on how you are as an investor, you may not want to get into these altcoins or get into these altcoins for a long period of time. So Doge is something, even though it's a meme coin, they do have package maintainers and people that really get on top of it and stuff. Anyways, that's just a little aside or tangent about cryptocurrencies. But in this case, I have my processed array at location P. So as I iterate through this, I will increment P, as you can see here. So that's an incrementer, or that's a way of incrementing. You can also do P minus minus or variable name minus minus, and that is a decrement or decrement. And that's a shorthand way of doing it. Instead of doing like P equals P plus P or something like that, or P plus 1, you could just do P plus plus, and it automatically knows that it needs to increment it by 1 as it loops through this for loop. You can also actually put this at the end as well if you wanted to take most of this stuff out of here. So you can put the defining P beforehand, and then you can increment P later on towards the end of the code before return. What's also nice about using a for loop is that I can break on certain conditions. So I can break out of this loop if I ever needed to for whatever reason. And that's kind of a nice thing because I can actually be a little bit more flexible. With the for each, I don't believe you can actually do a break. I can't remember if you can or not. I normally do not. Actually, I don't think you really can. You can do a break in a for loop though, which is really nice. And that is useful, for instance, when you have, like, say you only want the first occurrence or the first successful occurrence, break after that. You don't care about anything else. That's a very big thing, and that's kind of what I did in a Electron app that I've been working on for my day job. I really do want to, I kind of want to get past this so that we can start working with Electron apps. And then I'll start doing, I still want to get away from so many of these projects. And really, you can spend months on just one project by breaking down every little piece and going through stuff like this. So I really think this is a better way of going, because I often see where when I'm, using other people's code, documentation, or anything else like that, anytime I use it, it's like, okay, I wish they would have went a little bit deeper on this one part. And it'd be that one simple thing that just because it's old or something like that, you can't get past, and it causes all types of an issue. So I really like to break these things down, and that's one of the reasons why I do this. And I do it the way I do it, and we spend like a month or so, or a month or more, on a shell script. Which there's problems with that shell script. I gotta think that I didn't think about, like, I don't need to install git in the shell script if I need git to get the shell script. It's just like, well, so I gotta actually change that a little bit. Not a big change though, but I have to change the README and stuff like that to make it actually a little bit better, which I might do after this. I actually have to make videos for the channel. All right, so process array at P. So in this case, it's 0 through the first iteration. So Z0, whatever that is. And then I can even sort this if I wanted to. Like, I could take the resulting array after I've done all of this. I can actually sort it to where, I can make a sort function that sorts based off of the name of each one of these objects. So, or currency code, right? And then make an actual sort function. So you can actually use the higher order function .sort to actually sort through all of these, and then give you return an array that's actually sorted by the currency code itself. So you can actually do things like that, which is really nice, but not really needed. I usually like to sort on the front end. On the back end has more than enough to do. I don't need to give it more processing cycles or devote more processing cycles to it. Let the client side handle that. And that's kind of one of the things that you have to think about in terms of your logic. Maybe you're wasting too much time sorting data. Maybe it's large data sets, and you can offload that to your front end or to your client side
for them to sort. So you don't have to deal with it, and you don't have to waste processing power and time on it. So that's one thing that we can always what's it called, that we can always do, and that's a mindset that we need to have when we're working with these projects, is that our processing power is valuable, it is precious, it is also expensive. We want to make sure that we're not putting too much money into all the processing power that we're actually, or we're not putting too much into all the processing power that we're not putting too much into the processes that we're trying to actually compute or anything else like that. And I try to save that sentence there, so I apologize for that. Anyway, so here through this, I'm looking at the exchange price. So in this case, I do let price, and I have this in, this is already at the top level and an async function. So that means I can use the await keyword. This makes things run in a procedural manner, meaning that it waits for this to be resolved before it moves to the next step. After it moves to this next step, there isn't really anything that I have to wait for, and then it could just process as needed. And then once I have this, I put this as the price. So actually, let's do this. All right. So we can see here that I'm adding exchange price and total value, right? And that's all computed by the price, or putting in just the price, and then the price times the actual balance amount. So once I get that balance amount, then I'm going to actually compute my total value for everything. And then at the end of all of that, I actually, where is it? Portfolio balance plus equals. So I add whatever the portfolio balance, and in this case, it is defined as 0, right? I'm going to add to it price times this. And actually, what I can do is, oh no, I can't do that. If I actually had this assigned to a value, then I could just actually put that value here. But I didn't do that. Sometimes I don't like to assign all these things their own separate values and stuff like that. Just rather do it in line. So just doing it twice. It does make for cleaner code by giving everything a variable, or a variable name, or defining it as a variable. But it's like I have to come up with names, and sometimes it's hard to do that. And sometimes, and the biggest thing is the reason why I don't like doing that is because when you're doing these variables, the names have to mean something, to me at least. And that's a little bit of just like in code documentation. Now, if you're dealing with bigger libraries, you'll see that they'll use letters of the alphabet to define stuff. It'll be like A, B, E, G, E, F, G. Like it'll be like whatever. And they do that because they're working with larger functions, and they might also have a design document that they're going off of that defines what A equals in every bit of code that they're working on. Or it's just easier to deal with, and they don't have to come up with special names for stuff, because whoever looks under the hood at some of these libraries. You should, by the way. It's good for education, and then it's also good to make sure that you're doing a bit of a peer review to make sure there's no vulnerabilities inherent or inherently in the code. So, for instance, one thing I wanted to do, and by doing my own custom functions for accessing Coinbase, is because you can have a library that executes code that starts sending all your wallet information off to like a third party. Like, think about that, especially if you have an API key that is not restricted by IP address or anything else. All right, so all of that. So if P equals process array dot length minus 1. So why you have to do the process array length is because when you're counting or iterating through an array starts, even though 0 is a placeholder, but an array actually, it has an index starting with 0. So it's indexed for 3 items in an array. It'll be, the first index is 0, then 1, then 2, right? Then in another array, or when you're actually doing the dot length, it'll tell you there are 3 items. So it starts counting at 1. So that's why you have to actually subtract 1 from it. So then it actually exits, or not exits, but it it shows up in line with the counting method for an array. So let res callback object. In this right here, this is where we start putting in all our information. So the payload will be the processed array. So in this case, this will be an array, the payload. And then portfolio balance. This is where I've added up everything. And this happens on the last and final iteration or final loop through of this for loop. And then my callback will be res callback. And that gets defined here. Right? And then I do res callback as a function, and then res callback object and pass it there. It does whatever it needs to here in terms of processing it. So if my payload.length is equal to equals 0, failure, empty array returned. If otherwise, we're going to mark it as a success, give it a success message, and then we're going to do define our payload as object.payload because we're passing in an object, and then go from there with the portfolio balance, and then also actually set some headers. So I was just kind of working on this because I wanted to see, I wanted I wanted to have the view of the object, the resulting object, be a little bit cleaner, if you will. So if you look at this, it's gonna go. So it looks like this, and I want it to actually show up beautified or formatted like this. But the example that I was looking at, it doesn't do it like this because the example that I was looking at or what I was thinking about actually wraps all this stuff in HTML, so it gives it its formatting. I was just looking at another API and how they present it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But that's not actually how you it's not normal. So it's nice to use something like this because it's a little bit more human readable. You can see all the same things in here, like portfolio balance and all that other stuff. But this is nicer because then I can go ahead and collapse things as needed, and look at it with like, oh, okay, all I need is this, and then see what other things I have to put in there. So what I'm probably going to do is put a timestamp in there. So let's go ahead and add that. All right, here, there we go. What do we want for a timestamp? Res callback, payload. Let's do it here. Make sure it's valid. You could do, I think, do we have to do a constructor? No, we don't want to do a constructor. And a constructor, or defining a constructor, would be like putting the new keyword in front of it, but we don't need to do that. So we're going to do date.now, and we're going to call this timestamp. And I like doing these timestamps in epoch timestamp because it gives you a little bit more exact timestamp. So everything loads fine. All right, cool. So that's a quick change, nothing too serious with that yet. Let's go ahead and send it. Full send. Boom, now we got our timestamp here. And then we can always use that as necessary where needed. And I want to do it down to the millisecond. I don't like modifying it. If anything, I'll let my front end code modify it. There's no need for my back end code to actually do any modifications or anything like that to it. Also, with this information, I like to put this in there and maybe even have like a UUID for the entry or something like that put in there. Now let's go back and clean up some of our code because we've changed some things here. Actually, some things stay the same because we have the response here. All right. I don't think we need this. So yeah, let's go ahead and take this out because I sometimes use this as a test file as well. So clean that up. It'll restart because we use PM2, and it will watch the changes for it'll watch the change of any file. As you can see, we have like four different notifications saying that the MongoDB connection has been established. Essentially, we're running this in cluster mode, so it literally runs 4 different versions of our code, which is nice for redundancy, or code execution redundancy, or daemon redundancy, if you will. All right, so I think we're done with all that. So once all that's done, I export it. I also export the res callback just in case I need to use it for anything else, but I really shouldn't have to. But I like to export it and maybe even use it in other places, but I don't think I will have to, but you never know. So in this case, we'll go to one and we go back to this and it's like, okay, boom, all that stuff is clean. And we can even go back to, you can even go back to this. Oh, great. There we go. And it'll change, and now we got our timestamp in there as well. And then we can always take this to a beautifier and then validate the JSON, but that should already get done on the backend side. All right, so what else we got to talk about? We got to talk about schemas, right? So I just want to make sure we covered everything with our model view controller and talking through that. All right, controller accepts input and converts it into commands for the model or view. So for instance, any like server-side commands or server-side scripting that we have to do or have in place, the controller will handle for us. The model is responsible for managing the data of the application. It receives user input from the controller. The view renders presentation of the model in a particular format. So for instance, it skips over in a sense, even though it tells you what it does, but it skips over the fact that for the model to communicate with the view, it does it through the controller. The controller responds to the user input and performs interactions on the data model objects, which it tells you here in this line. The controller receives the input, optionally validates it, and passes the input onto the model. So, it tells you how the interaction is, and I think I followed it pretty well. But there are different coding paradigms or patterns that you could actually use. I like the model view controller because it's pretty simple and it's more for web front end, web development. So dealing with your front end, your middleware, back end, and or your middleware and back end. So your front end, of course, being your actual website, your middleware being your controller that interacts with your model, and then your back end, which is your storage point, maybe even storage of actual data onto the disk and things like that. All right, so we've gone through that, went through a little bit about model view controller. And I hope you guys get decent information from this because I like to read about this because it helps me learn and solidifies uh, my thought process or confirms a lot of things for me because then I could say, oh, okay, yeah, I know this because I had to deal with this and I had to deal with this and stuff like that. So it definitely helps me as a refresher in some cases. So in this case, we can work on split screen, and we're gonna do the. What do we want to do? Yeah, we go to one. Yeah, let's go to. Oops. What did I do? All right. All right. So that's two. So we're gonna go to one, and then put two down here. I want to work with M1 Finance stuff. Now with M1 Finance, M1 Finance. I don't have any M1 Finance code, so let's make a directory. M1 Finance. M1 Finance does not have an API. I know. It hurts me too. So I have to enter everything manually. So I have to actually go ahead and define a schema and that replicates my actual projection spreadsheet. So if I look at my projection spreadsheet and I look at the basics of what M1 Finance is for me, or basics in terms of the data that I put in for M1 Finance, one thing you have to do when you're dealing with the foundation of a project is think about what data is entered, how that data is entered, what is what does that data need to be entered in terms of if I look at my schema here, let's make this the only thing here. So I need account name. Oh, hold on. So in this case, I need the account name, and this is for all my accounts. So even things, oh, give me a sec. Let me turn off this piece of software here. Here we go. So I need my account name, account description, account type, my brokerage, balance, entry UUID, and date. Now this is if I'm defining an actual account. So I'll have my BB&T account, my BSCU account, or credit union account, and maybe like even like a bank card or something like that, right? Like I have all these different accounts. Then I also have an account type. So, and for instance, my my Roth IRA, that's a retirement based account. My passive income account, that is a general investing account, meaning that it doesn't have any restrictions in terms of how much money I could put in and what money I can, or when I can take certain money out. Then of course my Coinbase account would be considered a crypto. Even credit cards and car loans and stuff like that where I owe money, those would be considered debt, or even like credit. I can change that name too. My this right here is a credit card, so that'd be debt. I can even get a little bit more granular and say, okay, this might be a loan, or one of these might be a loan, like M1 Finance, or I can just say, hey, listen, it's just debt. Like I got to get rid, like everything that's considered debt. Boom, that's what it is. And I can even have like subcategories to add more granularity to it. Like maybe I have a loan or something like that. So as you can see here on the account type, I have it in a regular expression, and this is where it has to match these regular expressions, and that's what I'm defining in the schema. So essentially at the back end, at the base level, it's already defining what I expect to get into, or what I expect to get, and making sure that there isn't a problem, and no like data that I don't want or need is entered. So I'm actually formatting or sanitizing my data. And I go even things to, I even track my credit scores. So right now I got like a 673 credit score, and that's just because I owe some money on some credit cards. And it's like, all right, cool. I got to get rid of those and clean up that debt, which I'm working on now. In terms of just like funneling money to it because of what I want to do next in terms of like a new business move that I want to do. But that is defined as credit score. So I can actually say some of my debt would be like an auto loan or credit loan or line of credit or something like that, because there are different types of debt that you can actually have, maybe a collateralized loan or what have you. So we got to think about that. Um, And then we go into, okay, is it required? Yes. What is the minimum length in terms of what's entered here? As you can see, most of these are over 6 characters. Actually, I have to change that because debt is actually 4 characters. And account type, I'll probably take that out because I just really don't need that. But as you can see, like, okay, what is my brokerage? M1 Finance, Coinbase, Mass Mutual in terms of for my retirement. But when I look at it like that, it's like, okay, now I'm looking through this again. Maybe I don't want to have brokerage as a required field, because what if it's a debt account or something like that? Well, that doesn't have really a brokerage or anything like that, so it shouldn't be required. So I'll take that out. It's good to like always talk these things through. There's a really good video about the rubber ducky method. I think you guys should definitely watch this. Oh, what do we got for an image today? Oh, okay, that's cool. Not my style, but cool nonetheless. Let's call it rubber ducky. Rubber duck method. Yeah, so how to debug your code faster. Why programmers talk to, okay, there we go. So this woman here, coder, definitely you guys should watch this video. I I like her style. I like the level of production that she actually puts into, or the level of detail that she puts into her production. So definitely go ahead and watch her. and what she does, and she does great work in terms of breaking down actual front end code. If you're like a serious front end coder or anything like that, if you're a serious front end coder, definitely listen to her. She actually breaks it down and does a website based off of a PSD or a photo, if you will, or because most of these websites are designed and then they go to people. They're designed in like Photoshop, and then they go to people like her, coder, that actually make them into workable CSS files. So the rubber ducky method essentially is talking through something, explaining what you're doing, but while explaining what you're doing, not per se to a person, you're actually almost talking, you're really talking to yourself, but you're using the rubber ducky to act as a person or to in place of a person. So if you're a person that likes to code by themselves, you'll often find that coders will talk to themselves because they're talking through these issues. The rubber ducky method definitely is a 3-minute video. Definitely go and watch. Take your time. It's very funny. She has great commentary in there. But essentially, you look crazy, but what's happening by you explaining it to somebody, you're starting to really say, well, listen, why do I have account type as, what account type as minimum 6? Debt is 4. I'll have an error right there. So by talking through it, you guys are my rubber duck, if you will, and or the camera or the mic or the stream is my rubber duck, right? And by doing something like this and talking through it with you, I can start to see, oh, okay, Mike, you fucked up there. Oh, well, okay, you can make this better. Just like I did, I added the timestamp. It's like, all right, cool. Now we're going to the next thing. All right, well, brokerage. Well, that shouldn't be required. Maybe I have one that's not in there. Like it's things like that, going through the process and talking through it, if not to yourself, to another person. And that way you can actually put yourself, or that way you can actually debug your code. What's it called? Debug your code before it even actually gets out there to an even alpha phase. You're doing actual personal in your head debugging, which is really cool in terms of like a social a social trick, if you will, or a psychological trick to yourself to help you through something. So, for instance, here I could say minimum 6, or just not have a minimum at all. Because why do I need a minimum for account type? Like, is it really that serious to have a minimum? If anything, I need a minimum for my user account because I don't want somebody to have a user account with just one character. That's just kind of like stupid and it causes problems. So we want something a little bit more. The description, we don't want to have that required because we don't really always need a description. And we don't also need, maybe we have a max in terms of that description though. Oh, crap. Okay, cool. Let's do this here. And then make sure that's valid JSON because it is a JSON object. So that my description, max 255 characters, and it's also type of a string. So in this case, account type. Well, I do want that required. I just don't need a requirement of a minimum though. My brokerage, I don't need that required because in some cases I might not have a brokerage. Like, do you have a brokerage on a checking account? No, like you don't have a brokerage on a checking account. But I might say like, I might put in here where I do have this required, and then I put something in there for like checking, or credit card or something like that, or loan or something like that, but I don't think I want to do that. If anything, I might do some front side code to where I say, hey, I don't have anything that's crypto defaults to Coinbase. Like unless, M1 Finance starts doing crypto, which they do have plans for, Mass Mutual starts doing crypto, which I don't think they have plans for, not directly, maybe through some other ETF or something like that, or another plan or target date fund. So yeah, like going through all these things, like I'm just talking through it. So we'll do balance, number and required, and we could probably even do like true on this because we do want a number, or we can actually just default it to 0. So which we can do here. Required true, but if it's required, why do we have to default it? It's things like that. So it's like, how about we just default it and then default it to 0 and then not require it, because even if it doesn't get put in via the schema, it'll just default it to 0. Actually, no, that'll be bad because it's like I don't want it to be defaulted to 0. I want you to put a value in there, because I'm afraid that default, if there is something that's entered, we'll just put it as 0. So every time I put something in, then it's all zeroing it out. So you gotta think about things like that. The date always default to date.now, and then the UID always put in the entry ID or the account ID. So we went down this path because we were looking at the account schema and we were saying, okay, what do we need to actually enter data? Well, to enter data or account data for anything, just like I do here on my spreadsheet, I actually need an account to be defined. I have to define that I have a passive income account. I have to define that I have a Roth IRA. I have to define that I have a credit card, Coinbase, any type of debt. I have to define all of those things. So first, I need to define my accounts. And that is on this project, that is the lowest point of entry, or that is the first thing that I need to define is an account. I can't put in account data if I don't actually have an account to put in data for. So it's like, how can I put in account data? And then I probably do another schema. Let's actually define that now. And we'll do some of the same things here. So we'll just copy the yet. And we'll do account entry. And account entry should have name. I might have oh no, account name, right? And then I might have entry description. Here we go. Entry description. That'll be a string, max 255 characters. I can do more. I only just do that because it's like I don't need a long one, and that's just based off another project that I was working on too. But for instance, in my finance tracker, if I put an entry, what's it called? I have my notes. So I have that I was buying a house, buying stuff for the house. Year-end bonus is what I got. Borrow from M1 Finance. Discovered my 401k. So like, seeing all these different jumps. Also, by the way, like been doing crazy numbers in the portfolio, and I got to do a portfolio update. That's what I'm gonna do after this stream here. Probably end this pretty soon after we define the schema. And in the next video, what we'll do is define actually taking the schema information and saving it to a database. But if anything, I could probably at least go over the code, but not implement it yet. But yeah, so we're seeing that, hey, the difference from last month to this month already, last month and the previous month, in just the month of, what was it last month? April. In just the month of April, the valuation of the portfolio has gone up 10 grand. Freaking sick, just freaking sick. And then the valuation since May has started has gone up $6,800. Like doing really good numbers. I hope you guys are in crypto. I hope you guys are in long-term coins, and you guys are doing things to take profits, diversify, and go from there. But even with all that, we still have debt, and we have to worry about these things. Cross has been completed here on the portfolio, so I have more in assets than I do in debt. But at the same time, we have to get this down to 0. That is the goal without losing much of this here. So that's also another thing that we want to do, and that's what we're holding out for. But if I look at this, if I look at the finance tracker, there's a couple things that I need. I'm going to need the name of the account, the date, the balance. So I'm going to need all those things there, or those 3 things. And then also a note possibly for like the month or something like that. And there's a couple other things too that I want to actually define. And all these things get calculated, like the difference. And then maybe this right here, I might have a different type of entry for this. Like I usually do on the first of the month or month's end, I'll do a and I could probably automate this to a certain extent, at least for the Coinbase data. But I always do at the first day of the month, I always put in the the values for everything. I lock everything in. So on 5/1, this was the value of the portfolio, which was 59 grand. Then as I go on until, in this case, June 1st, I'll keep on updating these numbers. And then when June 1st comes around, I'll roll all this over into July 1st. And that's just how I keep track of everything month to month. And then that gives me my pretty graph here. So I can track everything and then have everything shown there in terms of what's happening and, what things are actually making me more money in that span of time. Sorry, my freaking neck is hurting. I gotta get a new camera so I can actually put back on screen here, but it's actually, I think this is better anyway because you guys can see the screen. And I know my face is, this is not, it's not what's important here. Have to just put my vanity aside and focus on the code. That's what's important. So entry description. What we'll probably do is an entry type, and that entry type. We might have like 3 entry types. The rest I don't care about, I think. So we'll have an entry type of we could do daily. We might have even an entry type of, let's do update, right? And then we'll have one for let's say monthly, or we can have one called finance tracker. And we might have, I think that's really it. Oh, there we go. Gotta take that separator out. Yeah, we probably just do, and I'm not sure if this is the proper way to write the regex for this valid for the schema, but we'll be testing that in the next video. So our entry type, we have update and finance tracker. I can also make this monthly, but I know I'm doing this to put in this here. So finance tracker, maybe even an update. Like even if I make a payment, that's still considered an update. So like thinking through these things and saying, okay, if I make a payment, that's an update. If I make a payment, that's an update. If I put something in for finance tracker, that's that's still an update, but it's a special type of update. Yeah, so things like that. That's why I said that though. All right, so now I'm just thinking about this, looking at my spreadsheet, looking at how I make my updates, and coding it accordingly to say, okay, hey, this is the issue that I might run into, or this is actually what I'm doing. Because really, without like, I do these things and I don't quote unquote define exactly what I'm doing. But for me to actually program what I'm doing, I have to define it. I have to say, oh, okay, I'm doing this. Well, why are you doing that, Michael? Well, because every month I have a finance tracker and I go through that, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Or maybe even I make an entry of my bills. Oh, okay, cool. So now I can say another entry type are bills. We'll say the caret symbol for the beginning of the line, dollar symbol for the end of the line. We'll say a bill. Right? So I don't enter those very often, but it's good that I actually have those. But what makes up a bill? Well, we have an entry description for that bill. We have an account name, so that could be the whoever the actual person is, like Comcast, T-Mobile, my alarm company. We won't have a brokerage, so that's definitely not happening. We don't need that for finance tracker or present, or I mean for our our updates. Actually, no, we would have a broker or brokerage. Or actually, is it? Yeah, well, we can have a brokerage. We can just have it like, we can have it as like another field and it just fills that in because I look at these things in terms of when you're thinking about your front end and your back end all together all at once. Sometimes you're like that blue superhero from like the Manhattan Man or something like that. Forgot the Dr. Manhattan, I think his name is from the Watchmen series. Like you see the past, present, and the future all at once, and you have to do that when you're dealing with you're a full stack developer. You have to see the front end, the middle, and the back end all at once, and it's not always perfect. You can't get everything, but you try to think about these things as much as possible, going slowly, you being a little bit more methodical with it, and saying, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. All right, cool, I gotta do this as well, stuff like that. So, entry type. Yeah, we'll have update, finance tracker, bills. Um, hmm. Yeah, because we only need to do updates on accounts that we already have defined. Um, Actually, even with the bills, those are accounts as well, right? Like we have to update those on a regular basis, but they may not have I might actually make a whole new schema for bills. Now that I think about it, I might make a new schema for bills because it's like bills is different enough to where like the finance tracker and updates, those are usually the same information every time. You're going to have the account name, the entry description, if there is anything like a note or something like that. And then you're going to have the entry type, um, from there. And then you'll have your brokerage and stuff like that. And what the balance is, the entry UUID. So let's actually change this to account UUID to make that a little bit more unique. And then entry UUID, and then the user schema, and user should have a UUID. Perfect. And we'll prepend our UUIDs with an E for entry. And I like doing that because then it kind of like, oh, okay, then you can look at it and say, oh, okay, this is an entry type because it actually has an entry UUID. So you'll have a lot more entry UUIDs than you'll have accounts because you won't have as many accounts. So then in terms of brokerage, I don't know if I want a brokerage. I don't know if I want one because why do I need a brokerage if I'm making an entry into an account? Like, do I need a brokerage for that? Like, I don't think I need that. Maybe what I do is I select the account and then they should already have all of that information in there for my brokerage and such and things like that. So I don't think I'll need a broker, the brokerage information here. All right. And then balance. Yeah, entry UUID, we'll keep that. And then the date, which is the timestamp. So we want that. And in fact, dates, I want to change date. So if I press Control W and then Control R, or I can actually, the way I figure it out later on is just doing Control R. Oh no, damn it. It's actually Control W, Control R to do replace. Don't mind what I said there. So date, and then replace that with, I like using timestamp instead. Right? It's just a little bit more descriptive of what that actually is. So I'll say yes for that one, no for that one, no for that one, yes for that one, no, no, yes, and then no, no, and then that should be no. All right, cool. So 3 occurrences, good. So we change that to date. Also, timestamp is a little bit universal in terms of when I write code. I always use timestamp as opposed to like a date timestamp or whatever. I try to timestamp everything and then also give everything a unique ID. Also, I like to do entry types because I can actually start getting information via entry types. Like for instance, I should only have 12 finance tracker entry types per year in a database. And then I can do a query that says get everything that says finance tracker. And then maybe even say, okay, everything within the year 2020 for finance tracker. then I can do other things. Oh yeah, let us explore. So let's go to AM charts here. Okay, AM charts. And AM charts, they have demos. We'll have this like line and area. You can do column and bar. Stock. I want to do a stacked, a stacked table, or a stacked chart. Richard Dixon, what it do, brother? Appreciate you joining, man. Thank you for always coming through, man. I really do appreciate you guys showing up and just like soaking up this coding game. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys showing up. But what we're doing right now, Richard, is going through working with schemas, and we went over a little bit of model view controller. So definitely catch the playback on that. Guys, when you guys watch me at 2x, man. Consume more information as best as possible. Slow down when you need to, but we got to be valuable with our time here, or use our time wisely. All right, so we can do a column line mix. Right. So for instance, maybe what I can do is I can actually have multiple series or line chart series, and then the columns would be the difference between year over year, like maybe a percentage or something like that. Like the difference between 2020 and 2021 is XYZ difference. And because I've kept information on my spreadsheet, I can actually do all these updates and then even see these things instead of a linear fashion like this. I can see them over a 12-month period. Instead of like one after the other, I can just see like, okay, this is what it was in 2019. This is what it was in 2020, and then into 2021. So then I can actually see the difference between all of these, and maybe even I watch uploads at 2x. Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Actually, I'm starting to make more shorts or YouTube shorts. And I'm like, that's one of the best things you can do, I think. And it's also really good for the brain, because then your brain actually starts to get accustomed to trying to keep up. So I think that's actually a very good thing to actually get into. That's a little bit like Edward Anderson got me onto that. And it's just like, I've been doing that more. Even him, I am used, like, I thought he talked fast, but when he just goes off, right? But for slower talking YouTubers like myself, BGS, and others, like I watch them at 2x and or 1.75x at least, and you can just consume more information. So then when I hear them at regular speed, it's so weird. It's just like, why is he talking so slow? And then I have to remember that I always listen to anything that these guys say at 2x. So it allows you to consume more information. So I definitely think you guys should actually do that. All right, so let's go back to it here. But yeah, I can use AM charts and then have my different series of data here as different line charts. In fact, I think we can actually do this in CodePen. Let me see if I can actually make this happen. So body, so this is here. Year income expenses. ODJ. Who's ODJ? Oh, Old Dirty Jaguar? Yeah, who's ODJ? It'd be messed up if I know who exactly you're talking about and don't even didn't recognize it. So, okay, this is then using the new format here. I can't figure this out right now. This is using like that AM charts 4 and the new way they have with the data, representing all the data. But you can actually see here. So expenses. So all the expenses information, you can actually have that in a line chart. And that line chart, column series is income, year, and then you should have expenses. And expenses is a line series. Nah, screw that. I can do this now. Let's say Oh, O'Shea do text. I can't see. I knew exactly who that is, and I was just like I couldn't figure out his name. That's crazy. I always do some stupid stuff like that. And then what we're gonna do here is have this, and we're going to have expenses old. All right, and then we're gonna have like 0 or something like that because it's like tripping out. So 2. No, we're gonna do 0. And you guys can use CodePen. CodePen is really nice. Oh, O'Shea. Yeah, thank you, Richard. With CodePen, it's really nice, and you can actually save these CodePens and then give it to somebody else and stuff like that. And you could play around with these things. So that's real nice thing with like when you have this is kind of like live documentation when you can actually mess with it in CodePen or JS Fiddle. All right, let's get back to it. So we're gonna do expenses old, and we're gonna call this a new line series, right? So, oh man, 1. So here, 2. Hey man, I did say live coding, right? Line dashes 5 5. Okay, so this gets to the old part of it. Additional projection. So we can still use our expenses here. And we can do 3. We're gonna do 4. And I can do more line dashes, I guess, but I'm not gonna mess with that right now. And in this case, and then we're gonna just do 5. So these should be solid lines. Oh, and I gotta make it valid JSON by doing that. All right, cool. So now I have my different series here. So then what I'll do here is define a new line series. Oops, sorry. Oh no, let's do this. And we're going to do line series 2. And let's see if I can actually do some fancy stuff here. No, I can't. Can I? No, I can't. So I got to do all these by hand. 2. So I'm going to define a new line series in this. And by defining that new line series, now I should have, or eventually, I should have a new line series in there. But we're going to call this expenses old. And then this is going to be mapped to expenses uppercase old. And then this is for my Y. Right, there we go. See, now we have our new line series in there, and you can see that it's going in a linear fashion, right? So then that's cool. And let's do color. Oh, I can do, we should be able to define color by like a name. So we can do like orange. All right, Richard Dixon says, when you finished with tonight's demonstration, I got a question on how to do this put method and write it to disk properly. Okay. Richard, if you want, you can start a JS Fiddle, and we can actually go over that online and look at that a little bit. So I can actually look at it. So if you go to like JS, oh wow, that's a really cool picture. Freaking eyes are super anime on that one. JS Fiddle .net, and then you can actually put some of your information in here in terms of your code, and then we can actually review it online here, and then you can actually save it. Oh, actually, hold on. Collaborate? Can you collaborate? How you can collaborate? I've never used collaboration. Oh, okay. So you can invite a friend. So if you do that, then you can actually invite me, and then we can actually look at it together. I don't know how well that works, but yeah, we can actually do that if you want. If you want to do it privately, let me know. If you don't want to like put certain information out there, sanitize the data or generalize the data so we don't put out information that you don't want to be out there. But yeah, so we can do that later. So yeah, cool. We changed it to orange. Now let's make this data a little bit more like the expenses here. So my expenses last year, let's just, oh crap. Oh crabapple. Um, my expenses last year, let's just make it two less than whatever the expenses are for this current year. So we'll do 19.1, 28.5, 32.9, expenses old, 29.1. Sorry, I lost train of thought there. 26.2, expenses old, and then this would be 30.9. What else is there? All right, cool. So now we see that, all this stuff, now we're seeing it side by side. And then we can calculate the difference between these two even as our bar columns. So in this case, gotta set it up right now. I'm gonna set it up right now. All right, cool. Yeah, paste that in the chat, and then we can go over that. If you want, unless you want to also join the live stream, we can definitely do that. I was gonna get off here in a little bit, but if you guys want to talk about this stuff, like I have no problem doing that. It'll help me with my mental acuity. So yeah, we can look at this with our line series. We have this. Um. Oh, okay. So line series bullets, and we can define bullets too for our line series, but in this case, we don't really need to. Or I'm not really too. I don't really care too much about that. But essentially, what we can do is in this finance tracker, a finance tracker entry, I can actually say, okay, everything that's finance tracker and everything that's in between X, Y, and Z date, or the year or something like that. So I could put in the year as 2021, and I don't have to do anything to calculate what that year is. So I can probably, now that I'm thinking about it, in terms of our entry schema, let's put in, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because we got our timestamp, so we don't need that per se. But we'd have to do all this on the client side. Yeah, which is fine. We'll do all this on the client side. So we can do like all or year to date or something like that and figure out everything. I don't want to do this on the back end. I really don't. I don't feel like adding more entries just because the timestamp is, yeah, I don't want to do that. I just don't like the way that would be or how that would look. All right, so screw that. All right, so let's go ahead and yeah, so let's look at CodePen. So now with CodePen, we can see that we can do all these different things in terms of how our charts and do like mock data or do a mock-up of how we want our charts to do. See, I'm like thinking about what you said already, Richard. But we can do a mock-up of everything here. So even our, like what's nice about this is we can even see how like, okay, we can save this as a PNG file. So that's saved and we can actually see the output. This is what's nice. This is why I updated when I start using AM Charts 4. I was using AM Charts 3, but AM Charts 4 allows you to export this as different types of data right off the bat. So you can do data and then you can export it as JSON, CSV, XLSX, HTML, PDF, and you can even print it if I needed to. So I can actually go to my printer here and actually print that information out. So like this is really cool what they allow you to in this new library. And essentially they make it so nice that you don't care about this little thing here, which is them advertising, and you can remove it, but I suggest you don't. More people should know about this. We should share that, and I think it's a really good thing. And we could do other things here too in terms of like the name and all types of other stuff. See the tooltips here. We can even compute the income, so we can actually make the income a difference of 2 every time, and we can actually compute that information, and then make our JSON, our data here, and then or not manipulate, but represent that data as data here, and then make all these definitions here for the way we want that data to be represented. Right. So AM charts, man, that's the beauty thing. That's the beautiful thing about it here. And that's what we're really going to get into when we're saving all this information. So I have my account name, entry description, entry type, the balance of that entry, entry UUID, which gets defaulted, timestamp. So I don't even ask for any of this stuff. It just gets done automatically. What we'll do while we wait for Mr. Dixon is what we'll do, we'll go ahead and I'll look at something here and I'll get some data from another project. Controller, API user.js. So if I do a login, if I do a register, that's where we need to get our information from. I think I already put our user. So that's working with the model. Oh, also with the model, before we go on to the user stuff and then you can see it, actually, let's check to make sure, okay, our execution is good. We can actually do validation on all of those things. So we can do account entry validation, account, yeah, see this account entry validation here. So you can see where I don't take in the actual date or the time or the timestamp or the UUID. All that stuff is already defaulted in the schema, and Mongoose will handle that, or the MongoDB driver will handle saving all that stuff for us because we've defined the schema. And with MongoDB, you do not have to define a schema. I've said that before, but you do not have to define a schema. One thing we also have to do is go through this and actually make sure it jives with our schema in terms of our minimums and maximums. But we're using the Joy library. In the Joy library, it actually has a great validation engine or validation code, so that we can actually we can do all these different validations, and you'll see how we'll tie it in later on. But I think I have I think I have the controller stuff done for the user. Yeah, user.js, and I commented all of that out. Good. All right. So excuse the blue and the lack of text highlighting there. But we'll be using with the user in our user pages. Let's actually show you the user pages so we can see what we're actually eventually going to get to. Ooh, right here. There we go. Data able. Forms, I believe. No. Authentication. And then we can do our sign up here. So you can see with the different sign up fields, we can add different fields as we need to for our registration. I usually like to add like a key field. So I'll make this form public, but for you to register, you actually need a special key. And that special key I define here. So like if you want it to be a member, right? So I add a drop down for members and a drop down for admin. So you can choose if you're a member or an admin. And then for that, you have to put in ham and eggs or admin account. Like you have to put in that key. If that key is not sent, and then I'm going to return a 400, excuse me, or failure, or the proper HTML code for that, so that you can key off of that, or you can just key off of the JSON that is returned, which I usually like to key off of the JSON because then I can get things like messages. So like invalid registration key, invalid registration key. So stuff like that, like I don't have to. I could just do an if to covers that, and then an if else, or I don't need an if or a subsequent else for that if. It's like if it doesn't do this, no problem, go to this one. If it doesn't do that, then return. Either way, if you don't have that registration key or if it's not valid, boom, you're screwed. And then what I'll do here, so I have my request body in terms of the user information. Let's just go ahead and take this out. So it's like a lot easier to read. Yeah, we'll just do that. Then we can add it back in later. So check registration key. We'll have member, user exists. So if the user exists, await find one. So this is now where we're using a database call. That database call, and it took me a while to figure this out. So for instance, user or capital user is defined here, in terms of coming from my schema. So we have our user model in our schema. So let's go ahead and split screen and go to 2, and then to the model, validation, or no, schemas. We don't need to make a directory of schemas, Michael. All right, cool. So we'll go to user schema here. And as you can see, I have my user schema here. And with my user schema, yeah, my validation is there too. Good, perfect. So with my user schema, I'll take the request object or the body of the request, right? And then assign that to object. Then I'm going to validate that input. So I'm going to actually run it through my validation filters that I actually define in my .validate or in my model validation.js. And in that validation, now I can do the validation for the registration data, right? So then if there's an error, so const error, so like pretty much I'm taking out, using this, I forgot what they call this, man. This is like, uh, oh man, you can assign variables. Like, so for instance, I have multiple schemas in this. If I wanted to, I can define all of those. I can extract all of those using this syntax here. So I have my user model, and I might have like, accounts, account model, right? And then actually, yeah, account model. My account model, and then I can say account, and I can define it like that if I wanted to. So, just something to think about, something you definitely can do. And I'm not sure if this is even the right syntax, because I think you have to do it like this or something like that to extract multiple things out of JavaScript like that, or out of a module. Yeah. So we'll probably look that up just to make sure, so you guys can know, and then I can give you decent information. All right. So in this case, if there's an error, which I'm pulling this error out of my validation, and you can see abort. I have set this abort early to false. So I want it to give me every error and then return that to my front end. And then I can display every single error, maybe in a little box down here with red highlight or red background, so that you can see all the different errors that the backend is having problems with. I like that. It's a little bit more intuitive and more descriptive of what the hell is actually happening in your code, or what's happening with the back end in terms of what it requires. So in this case, you'll see message. I have that as blank, and then error.details. I might even change stuff like this in terms of like, okay, well, this is not usually how I do it. I might have like, this is let message. Oh, okay. So error.details. So I go in the error.details, and for each atom in that error, because it's an actually array, the details portion of it, then I'm going to add that to the message. And then, yeah, there we go. I have my status failure and then my message. And then I key off of that in my front end code. Cool, Richard. Richard, let me know when you got that. Just send it over in the chat. I just got on my queue. Should be able to do it now. All right, cool. Yeah. But you can send over that link whenever you're ready, Richard. So then in this, from here, I can start doing other things like check if username or email exists. So if the user does exist, then return username exists, error exists. So I do all my different checks. Almost like this is kind of the same syntax that I use when it comes to the preprocessor. In this case, I'm using a constant because I'm not going to change that later on at all. And this is not something that you would change anyway, because this is returned from the backend from the database itself. Password match. So if there's like a password match, if the password does not match in terms of like when I put in the password and then a password repeat field, then it's going to be like, okay, passwords do not match. So I'll have little checks like that in place. All right, now we get into using Bcrypt, which is our backend, or which is part of our backend here. Actually, no, does it use Bcrypt? Yeah, salt hash.
Yeah, I should use Bcrypt. Where is Bcrypt? No. Oh, it uses Passport. Okay. I thought I was using Bcrypt. Sorry, I gotta look at this. So user object, so new user. So this is using our schema or our predefined schema. So essentially here we have our user object where we fill in all the information, but we're doing new user. Now this new user is defined up here, and that is the link up above. I don't see the link, brother. Oh, you might have entered the link, man. And I didn't have you as a moderator. I put you as a moderator. So you can go ahead and post the link again now, because it doesn't show for me at least. All right. So while he's putting that in, I'll just finish this up. But we define all these things here in our user schema here. And we have our user model, and that user model is making a call to the mongoose database driver, or MongoDB database driver using mongoose. Okay, cool, perfect. I got the link now. So now with that mongoose database driver, it's using I passed it a couple parameters in terms of the collection, the actual schema that I'm actually using for accounts, and then I pass it the collection name again, because if you're using mongoose.model, it will automatically, I wanted the variable or the collection name to be like, uh, I think it's snake case. Yeah, snake case, which is standard for JavaScript. So the first character and the first word of the variable name is lowercase, and then anytime there's a new word in that string or in that variable name, it's uppercase, right? So it's like user uppercase M for model, things like that, or as you can see here, right? But you have to define that, and you have to pass it as a variable or a parameter. So it actually creates the collection. If it doesn't exist, it'll create the collection automatically, but it'll create it with the proper name or the name that you want. All right, so let's finish this up, and then we'll look at what Mr. Dixon has for us here. So new user, using the what we defined earlier, and then we're putting in all this information. See this user ID? I'm probably going to take this out. So, because we don't need that. And then we also have to define that as UUID. And also, I don't think we're going to need that. So I'll just put it out here and comment that out. But yeah, so actually, I'm not going to save anything in this file. We'll figure that out later. Then after that, you can do user object.save, because now we've done a new constructor or done a constructor call, and we've defined a new constructor for user, and then that's assigned to this object here, or now this is assigned to that object, and now I can go ahead and save. Once it's saved, then I could say success. It's a denable asynchronous function. So then I can do res.send and then send user has been successfully created, or catch if there's an error or something like that, and go from there. All right, cool. So let's get out of this, and no, we're not going to save that. All right, cool. All right, let's see what Mr. Dixon has in store for us here. So let's look at our JS fiddle. Oh, fiddlesticks, I went to the wrong window. All right. Okay, so let's close out all the other stuff. Yeah, we'll deal with that later. We don't need this. We'll put this back over here in our other window. Yeah, definitely listen to this, how to debug your code faster. Great video. All right, cool. AM charts, we'll get out of that. And we can see how we have our stuff stacked. So that was a good exercise there. All right, so you're calling the express library. All right, so that's where I'm at. Hold on, let me just, I'm gonna, where where's the link? How can I link to this? Oh, okay. You want to do it through that? Yeah, we can. All right. Let me just get my sound settings. I was just going to give you the. Actually, yeah. Actually, let me just give you the link to the stream here. What in the world? Why do they name me that? That's funny. Let's do this. There you go. So you can join me on the stream if you want, if that's okay. If you feel comfortable doing that, go ahead and let's get that going. And then we can go through all this. It's a lot easier because if I do it through the voice feature, you're going to be a couple seconds behind the stream, I believe, I think. And then also I want them to hear your voice as well. Let me know if you feel comfortable. I don't see you yet in the backstage or anything like that. So. Did I get rid of it? Oh, okay, perfect. All right, cool, man. Mr. Dixon, what's up, sir? I can't hear you if you're talking. Let me make sure my sound is right on my side. All right, go ahead and talk again. I should hear you through the stream. Yeah, you should be added to stream by now. You there? Oh, I can hear you. I can hear your background. Good. Yeah, go ahead and say something.
Can you hear me, Grizzly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sweet.
Let me just make sure the stream can hear you too.
Sound far or what?
No, it sounds good. I just want to make sure the stream can hear you too.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I appreciate this, bro.
Perfect. Yeah,
right.
no, you're all right, perfect. All right, cool. Yeah, no problem, bro. This is cool. Like, it's like, sometimes like put myself to the test as well. All right. So, we're gonna have to use our imagination here for some of this stuff. So you're gonna do your post, fetch all users. So you explain what your problems are. Guys, let me know if you can't hear him, but I think you guys should be able to. Okay, cool. All right, you guys, Sir Anthony got us. Thank you. All right,
Okay, so,
explain your issue, brother.
Okay, yeah. So this is just the index .js file on my from Visual Studio. Now I do have a post .json file that I'm trying to play with. So that's what that's my data, basically my database, and
you just have like maybe an array in there or something like that.
Yeah, so I got the post. I'm just basically just still trying to get the foundations right. So I'm using Postman with it. So, but I can't. So if you go down and look, the put method, this is what I'm having problems with. So when I try to send from Postman, actually I probably should have been doing screen share maybe. So from Postman, it's showing that the message. I know I'm doing something wrong. I haven't just been my problem solving it, and because I have been kind of slacking on doing some problem solving. I used to be problem solving every day, but then got caught up trying to learn the frameworks. Caught up trying to learn the framework of Node and everything. I kind of been slacking on my actual problem solving skills. I know I have to use the splice method. I think. I don't know if.
Well, you would use splice only if you're trying to like take that information and convert it to an array. And also with object-oriented programming, what you want to do, you have like your PM ID. So I think that's like your post ID. What
What does the PM ID stand for?
Well, above that, y'all got to equal in the params ID. So, in Postman,
Oh, right here.
I can just type in the ID. I'm trying to, so when I put in the ID of the JSON object, I want to replace that object with matter of fact, let me just bring in some of the data. You see what I'm doing. Well, I'll just copy a couple of them.
Right. And also one thing I'm seeing here too, you need to probably assign a lot of these things to actual variables. So let posts or let's say user posts. Oops. Oof. Why did I do that? Ooh, what am I? Okay, hold on. Let user. Yeah, I would tell you to start okay, so with object-oriented programming, one thing you do with object-oriented programming is that you need objects. Some things you can't do all in one line. This is something that I had to quickly get over. So you're making changes to these things, and it's also nice to put these in variables because maybe you have the same data, but then you want to make changes to the data at different points. So you could say user post splice, or splice. Is it splice or spice or slice?
I think, well, for me, I think it's just Splice. I'm just trying to I was trying to test and matter of fact, let me just comment out and show you some of the data real quick.
Yeah. So the splice method changes the content of an array by removing or replacing existing elements and or adding new elements. So it looks like, so if I splice out 1 and 0, so inserts at index 1, and then whatever the months are. So you're making changes to it. So you're adding February in this case. Oh, okay. So you're adding, this is to your user posts, I guess.
Yeah, so this is just a sample of the JSON data I'm dealing with.
Okay, let's get down to there. All right, cool.
So I was trying to manipulate, I was going to switch out the title and the body. So that's what I was trying to, from Postman.
So now what I'm seeing here, so this is your JSON data, but this is an array, right?
Yeah, it's in an array. Yeah, so yeah.
All right, perfect. You just took out the body of it. Okay, cool. Sorry, I like to just do those things to for myself. A little bit of OCD there. So if I look at we'll say user posts, right? And that's it. Now this is an object that you can actually do things to. Now what I would like to do is post, instead of posts, since we're just redefining it, we're going to do user posts like that. And then we just, from now on, we're always going to use user posts. One thing I do though here is I want to, you have your JSON stringify.
Yeah, that's my post JSON file.
Right, so that's for all your different posts. One thing you might have, the problem you might be actually running into is that you're trying to do this, and let me guess, it's not returning or doing anything, right?
Yeah, so I can pull it up. It's actually showing successful in Postman. I can pull it up in the console, but like you're saying, it's not writing to the file though. It's not.
I think you're having an issue with, so fs.write file is asynchronous, and you're not waiting for that. So you actually need to wait for that and then return a result. So it might be doing these things out of order. Also, one of your biggest things is you only have error. So your fs write file, let's look at the documentation of that, because we can see what parameters are able to be passed to it. So if we do, what the fudge is that?
That shit all fucked up. I also get so aggravated. I was just switching, messing up the codes. I probably made it.
No, I was looking at the picture, not what you're saying, bro. But look at this picture. I was like, what the hell is it's like an alien jellyfish, man. I'm not swimming with that damn thing. All right, cool. So let's read files here. Oh, they changed the documentation in Node.js. That's really cool. This is different though. I don't think this is like the same documentation. So what version of Node.js are you using?
I guess the current one.
You can say you can in your well, I don't think it really matters, but you can do node-v or node space dash v, and it'll tell
Okay.
us the version. So you can do that in your VS Code IDE.
Okay, yeah, it's 14.16.
14. Okay, so for damn, it's raining out there. Let's do. Oh, okay, so you're on the LTS, which is good. And we're gonna do file system. There we go. fs.write. You could do a write stream. It's also good to like one thing that I've heard in terms of like when working with stuff, you would have it's best to do write streams and get used to using write streams as opposed to writes. Now I'm just saying that this is something I want to do, but yeah, you do that. I think what you probably want to
So,
use to go
so
ahead.
you say right? So use right stream instead of right file.
Yeah, so just get used to that. I'm not saying do it now, but just get used to that and start researching right stream.
All right.
You know me, I talk about a lot of different things, my head jumps all over the place, but get used to
Nah,
using
nah,
right stream.
I like it. I like watching you because it kind of give me an idea what I need to be doing as I, start coming further along.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it does, man. But think about using RightStream because RightStream is going to help you when it comes to using working with bigger files. Like working with a file over like a meg or something like that, you're going to start to see the problem with write, which is asynchronous, versus RightStream and stuff like that, or write, which is asynchronous. And when it deals with like larger files, there's a whole lot of waiting, and you might have issues with timeouts and stuff like that. But think about RightStream. Anyways, going forward, I would say what we can do is we'll do a test with write sync. No, you do not use write sync on a regular basis. It is not something you want to use on a regular basis, but it's good for development. Do you know why we don't want to use write sync?
Okay, so I mean, I'm assuming it have to do with being synchronous, right?
Right, because if it's synchronous, it's actually going to stop the event loop and it has to wait for that to execute and finish executing. Now, it's nice. We want something like that because we want to finish the writing first before we move on to anything else. So it's good for testing, is the
Okay.
point. So let's move our tabs over a little bit here. All right. So what I would say to do is in your code, and I guess you could possibly share your screen, I think, but in your code, what I would say to do is comment out, do a multi-line comment, and where it says like you know how to do a multi-line comment, that's pretty much it right here. So if you wanted to comment out multiple lines in JavaScript, you can actually do it in this fashion. So you start the first line or before the line or wherever you want, / asterisk, and then wherever you want that comment to end, you do asterisk / and then that ends, and then essentially this code is commented out instead of doing like double / every time. I think we got it here. So give me a sec. Let me do this. Oh, okay. We didn't do it right. Boom. This should work. So that should get that out. And I'm not gonna lie. I don't like your spacing here, son. Don't like it. Don't like it at one bit. But
Oh yeah, I know it's jacked up on that put. It's jacked up on that put method. I was doing so much rearranging today with that. Like this put method drives me crazy today, man. Like,
Hey man, that's just OCD on my end, but like I like to like I'll work like this for a little bit, but I used to actually do this where I had so many different spaces, but it's kind of like unmaintainable, and there's things in VS Code. So what I would say to do is comment out this write file. So before this and after the ending characters there. for what they call that, or the closing of that. So comment that out and then put in a console user post. So let's see what we'll do is what that does for us is we'll see if it actually works. So essentially, when you go to this post method, it'll find your post and then it should console out user post and it'll return nothing. Actually, what we can do this here. So just so it returns something in Postman, and we'll do message testing, right? So that'll be good. All right. So make the copy and paste these changes here. Also, why do you have your status at 500? Why is it status 500?
Yeah, and I know that's probably a wrong status code. Yeah, it probably should be a put.
No,
It should be a put status code, right?
No. It's right. The thing is, that's in your error. So again, this is why because when I'm reading this, I don't understand it because of the spacing. So this is why your spacing is very important, right? Like, or your indentations, I should say, is very important because then when I'm reading this, I'm like reading this like all weird and stuff. Also, your res status, it should look something a little bit like this, so it's a little bit tighter. What's also nice is that in Visual Studio Code and other, better IDEs than what I use, they actually have. Let me close this window out. They actually have, curly brace or brace highlighting. So when you click on it, then I can see, oh, okay, that brace is this is the opening brace and this is the closing brace for that bit of code.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice. But one thing I wasn't seeing is this here. And you said you have if error, but okay, cool. So let's go to write, and I say let's do a write file. Okay, we're doing too many things at once. Let's do this. With your put, are you updating your post? Right, you're updating that post.
Yeah. I'm trying to update. I'm just trying to update one of the JSON objects.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is this here, and take that out because now like I've figured out like what's going on here. So we're gonna do a console, then we're gonna do a return. We can't do anything after the return because once you return, that's it. There's nothing else to do there. All right, so return status. So go ahead and copy these two lines and comment out your write file, and you don't have to do the sync portion of it either. And we'll work on that here in a second.
All right, give me a moment.
Mm-hmm. This is really cool though. Like this JS Fiddle, like they've really updated this.
Yeah, I never heard of this. This this all right site.
Yeah, JS Fiddle is cool.
Yeah, got a voice feature and everything. That's sweet.
Yeah, like you can work with other people. That's new feature too.
Yeah, because
like,
CodePen don't have. I don't think have nothing like that.
Nah, I've never seen that. But what's nice about CodePen, which you can do in JS Fiddle as well, you can pick your different libraries also. So which is nice.
Yep, I see. I didn't know about this. I was just like, if I had just want to like mess around with stuff real quick, I've been using CodePen and Replit. I think it's called Replit. I like Replit. That's good.
Oh, that's for Python most likely.
No, you can use all languages with it.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Because I think like Python has like the REPL or something like that in there. I forgot what that means. Could be Python. Could be wrong.
I think JavaScript has a REPL too.
as well. REPL probably does. That's what happens when you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So it's just like I say that stuff and it's just like, oh yeah, I think that's Python. All right. So tell me how that runs, and I think you can actually share your screen. Can you share your screen at all, if you don't mind, or?
Yeah, I share it. Give me one moment here.
I'm not sure if I have to start paying for this software at some point. Well, that's happened. Let me get some water. $11.39.
You gotta make juice tonight. All right.
All right, what's true? Okay. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Let me know if I have to stop screen share.
All right, yes, I should be sharing my screen now.
Sir Anthony, thanks for joining, brother. I really do appreciate it, man. Have fun over there with Ed. I'll probably catch the playback, 2X style. Peace, brother.
Oh, El going ham right now.
Yeah, as always. You know how he does it. All right, cool. Let me open up the stream on my side. Actually, no, let me just put this on another screen here. Cool. Excuse me.
All
All
right,
right,
so here goes my post, man.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it shows this post updated 200 OK.
No, I haven't did it yet. This one I did it earlier. So I'm finna do it again. I'm finna do it now and see what happens. Perfect. All right, so it's showing successful in Postman. All right, let's see the post.
Also,
JSON
I need you to, oh yeah, you did comment it out. Okay, you have notes, Jay. Oh, that's another one. Okay, cool. So I see what I'm looking at. All right, so that's cool. It's doing the console output. Let's go back to our index. All right, perfect. And what we're gonna do is we're going to, let me just do it on my side and it'll just be faster than writing it or than saying it. We're gonna take out our console because we don't need that. Also, like two things that you want to know is, I'm gonna take back over on the screen share here. I had to stream. Two things or one or two things we'll say. Let's do write file, and we won't do sync. So synchronous, as you can see here, it'll take in FD, which is the integer. So yeah, we won't do FD, but it'll take in the string that you want to enter, or in this case, a JSON object, so string or object, and then position, and then encoding. So we won't have to do the encoding part. But we don't have to do the position part. We'll do the encoding part, and that'll be like UTF-8 or something like that.
I thought to write the file, don't you still have to parse the
do a JSON.stringify? Yeah, you could do a JSON.stringify, but that doesn't really mean that it has to write it that way. You can actually do it without stringify, I believe. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly, but sometimes you don't really have to do it like that. But as you can see with the write sync, there's two different versions. Write file sync. Here we go. This is the one I'm looking for. All right, so you'll have the file, which is the file name, and then the actual data that you're actually trying to put in there, and then all your options, right? So in this case, you can see all the different options that you actually have. In this case, it's an actual object, and we'll have our encoding, our mode, and flag, and all this other stuff.
Okay, so we're using write file sync, not write sync.
Right. Well, I'm just showing you that because this is how you would do it if you want to do like a quick test or something like that. You could do it all in one line, but we're gonna do we're gonna write the right way. So that is going to be write file. All right. So I think it's right. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I got the right one here. And then callback. Callback is a function, so we'll do this one here. Boom. There we go. No, we're gonna do buffer from dot. Okay. No. Here we go. All right. We're gonna do write file, and then in this case, our data is going to be. We're gonna reuse.
Yeah, post dot JSON.
What's the name of your file? Is it like
Post. Yeah,
post.json? Yeah, you were just saying
yeah,
it.
post dot JSON.
All right, and then our data is going to be user posts. All right, and then we have error, but we should be exposing when we're doing write file. We should, let me make sure here. Data, throw error, console log. Oh, okay, perfect. All right, good. All right, so in that, instead of this console log, we're gonna do our res. We're gonna return a res status. And that should
Yeah,
be
use the post. Yeah, that's right, because you put it in a variable. I forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah. So in this case, so this is how we look here. So if error, throw error, but what we're gonna actually do is return a failure. So instead of throwing error, which will throw an error to our actual system, or in your IDE, it'll show out there. We're just going to return something to, into like 400, I think is bad. And then our message is, failure to post, right? So that way it's always returning something to Postman and to the front end. And then of course, always end our lines properly here, which I see you don't do. Like, this is sacrilege, blasphemy there. I'm just playing. It's not that big a deal. I mean, some people do think it is, though. So in this case, where I was actually confused is that it only returns error. We only have a callback function. So this is an asynchronous callback function. No, sorry, it's an anonymous callback or an anonymous function. So that has no name to it, right? We haven't defined a name. It's not asynchronous because this is asynchronous by nature. Our callback does not have to be asynchronous though, unless we want to use the await keyword, which we would have to add in the async keyword before, but we don't need that.
Okay.
And I'm going through this in my head. You're my rubber ducky right now. So I do if error return this, right? And I don't have to define like anything with the curly braces or anything like that. I could just do it all in one line, cleaner code. And then if it's not an error, like we can even do it if else if we wanted to. If we wanted to chain these things together, we can chain them. But we're going to return res status. So these two returns should not conflict with one another and actually should return whatever we need to. And then we can even do a console before this just for like, message.
Okay, so you're saying, yeah, so that's basically an if else. Basically, you just not.
Essentially it is, yeah. And I'm not using an else. But the reason why it's
I'm so used to using the else. I'm always manually typing it. Okay, I didn't think.
And you don't have to do it. This is called and it's just something I learned. I think it's like if guarding. Oh, that's a really cool picture, like ski slopes. If guarding. I think it's JS. Yeah, guard clauses. Let's go back here. Let's go to Stack Overflow because they're always right. So the standard JS guard is, if, and then it looks like this, which case you have your conditional, so on and so forth. If you want to check if the value is valid, then you can just do this. So Boolean true, you can go right here. But what it's really saying is with guarding, and this is what I use with my preprocessors, a shorter way of doing this is taking this out, because you don't need all of that. It'll already interpret it for you in the Node.js language itself. This is not this is not a good example of what I'm talking about in terms of guarding, but you get the gist of what that really means. But that's not really a good example because it doesn't really show you exactly how I do it the same fashion that I do it. But yeah, you could do it like this, and you don't have to do the else. The only reason you do the else is if you want it to be chained. And if it's chained like that, that means you can keep on chaining it if there's any other conditions or things that you don't get. Essentially, you should only be looking for error. If error exists, which is in this case, this is truthy, excuse me, if error exists, then return this. If it doesn't exist, do whatever else is necessary in that function, and that whatever else can be absolutely nothing. So let's go ahead and put this in the code, and I'm going to share your screen again, okay?
All right.
All right, so let me maximize on my side. And don't worry, when you get big in coding, I won't say that you stole my stuff. Just letting you know. I'm not going to be... Watch, you're going to turn into like a Kevin Samuels, and then I'm going to be like, listen, man, I got proof. I used to help him code, and now look at him. He's
clout chasing me.
He's clout chasing. Oh, my God. All right, cool. So...
You gave me back. Yeah, is my screen sharing?
Yeah. Your screen is being shared right now on the stream.
All right,
Everybody can see you and what you're doing. Bro, what are you doing? What are you doing? Did you just bro? I can't believe you just did that. Why didn't you use Control C and Control V? This is sacrilege.
Oh, I should be your terminal. I'm not.
Don't ever do that on my stream ever again.
I'm not a shortcut master yet.
No. This stops now. Don't ever do that again. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know that drives you crazy. You're a Linux bastard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not a Vim ninja yet, but I'm pretty decent. I know what to do. But let's go ahead and also take out. See, we have that previous return statement there. We got to take that out because that fs write will never run. Look at that. Look at what this guy's doing. Bro, use shift. Like use the shift and the arrow keys. Use the home key, bro, because this is bro. I'm hurting right now.
You got to make a list of shortcuts I need to remember.
No. You need to like right. Okay, let me give you your list. Right click within the text file. Right there's your list right there. You see that stuff where it says Control F2 and Control Shift R and all that stuff?
Okay.
That's your list. If you focus on the ones at the bottom.
Just focus on it. Okay, sweet. I'm always going here, but I never really thought about just pay attention to the shortcuts.
Every program has one, man. So what I'd suggest that you do is that you go ahead and start to learn it. It makes you a little bit faster and more proficient when you're using these things, and you can like do things a lot faster because it's like boom, you shift this, do this, blah blah blah, and then go from there.
Okay, sweet. I know a couple of shortcuts. I know the Windows button and Shift and R. When I know the Windows button and R brings up the
return the run prompt. Do you know
Windows? And the Windows button and Shift and S brings up screenshots when I can do screenshots.
You can do and I don't want to use that one a lot. And don't do this on your main screen, but at some point do Windows key and V. It'll show you a clipboard of everything that you've copied in the past, which is very helpful.
Okay, sweet.
But if you do but if you do it here, then we'd see all the porn URLs that you're going to. So we don't want to do that right now.
Yeah. The only reason I knew about those few shortcuts, it's because it's work related. Because dealing with IT, we always got to use those shortcuts.
Yeah. But get used to it, man, and then you become like a keyboard ninja, and people start noticing and be like, "Whoa, this is a little bit faster from you," and stuff like that. Let's go back down to your put declaration because we're gonna do this, and then I'm gonna get off because I gotta make a video for tomorrow, and then what's it called? Probably listen to Ed or somebody else while I'm doing all this other stuff.
Oh yeah, Control Counts. I do know that. I've been using that in the terminal.
Control Cap. Oh, Control C.
Yeah. I know a couple of now. You gotta give me a little credit. Now. I know a couple.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Let's look at our code first before you run it. Let's look at line 88. Do we need that?
Because I have it.
No, line 88. Do we need line 88?
Not. I guess not really. I mean, just to show.
It's up to you, but it'll show it in the back end when it executes and when it gets to that portion of the code. But it's up to you. If I was to do a console log, I'd probably put a console log inside my write file right before my return. So it could say like, file successfully written or something like that. Or maybe even I have a check that shows that the file is successfully written. So maybe we put in terms of line 90, right before line 90, we'll put a console log there.
Control Z. I knew about Control Z too.
And then we'll do Shift Home.
All right, Shift.
Home key. So hold down Shift and then press the Home key. Right? And then we'll do Control X to cut. Then we'll go down to our line. We'll go to the beginning of the line. Right? So beginning of line 91 there. Right? And then we'll press the Enter key. Our IDE handles the indentation for us. So we'll go up to line 91 now, which is empty. And then we'll press Control V. Right? So, I mean, as you see, we've cut down on like right-clicking, selecting, and all this other stuff. All right, so now let's go ahead and press Control S to save this file.
Sweet. Yeah.
Right? And what you'll notice in terms of your IDE is actually telling you things. So, for instance, you see where it says index.js at the top where it has that little X there? Before it was a white circle. So let's go ahead and just press the letter E. It's an arbitrary key that means absolutely nothing. Just press the letter E. Yeah, so now you'll see that same X is now gone, right? It's not saved. Like it's showing that it's been updated. So we can do Control Z to undo that, right? And it turns back. So your IDE will tell you different things, and when you use like things like Visual Studio Code, which is a lot nicer. All right, so we've done Control S. Everything is saved. All our changes are saved. You've commented out what we don't need. Now let's go ahead and run it.
All right, Robert.
Oh, no, that's is it JS? Oh, okay, cool. All right, so let's go open up NodeMan or Postman, NodeMan. All right, go ahead and do it. So we might be having an error here. So let's let's push that window up so we can see the IDE and see what it shows. So server up and running. It's giving us this, but it's not returning our status. That JSON server is up and running. Super Saiyan developer. All right. Now user posts. What are we having an issue here with? Return status. I think you're doing everything right there. I think what we might have to do, I think we can do top level awaits here. Write file sync. It should do this for us. And it did. It execute. Now let's see if that file is actually created. What is the name of this file supposed to be?
No, I didn't do it. This the ID 102 right here.
Now, is it creating a whole new file for us?
Nah, it should be just manipulating this one, like replacing the title and the body.
Oh, should it even do that? I don't think it's. You have to understand too. Write file is going to overwrite that entire file. So maybe we need to write this to a new file. One thing we also might need to do is press Control R. I think that might reload this file.
Well, now the post, I know I was able to, use, the push method for posts. So I was assuming that I would use Splice to manipulate. I know, I was practicing with just arrays and objects and my, little problem solving. little stuff I was doing on other websites.
So one thing you're gonna have to do, you're actually gonna have to read that file,
then
and write it. So you're gonna read it, so essentially you're gonna have a call. You're gonna have a function within a function. First, you're gonna read that file, open it, assign that to a variable, which will be in an array. Then you can manipulate that array and then do a fs write file. So you're a little bit out of order here. This is like, a Jan Van Zan. You're out of order, bro. You're out of order. So.
Oh, trust me, I definitely knew that. That's why I just couldn't just wrap my mind, because doing all this other stuff with the, all these other stuff, like, I didn't know what I was doing.
No, you're good. So what we'll do is let's change the name of that write file, because it could be because that file is open, or we have to set a key to overwrite it. But let's do a quick thing here. Yeah, we can cancel that. Let's go back into our IDE here, and then where it says write file and it says post.json, let's just change that to updated post.json, just so we can get the write file out of the way.
So you want me to change my file?
Yeah, I want to change that file name, because essentially this write file should create a new file. So let's change that. Instead of post, we'll do an updated post. So just put updated in front of it. Yeah, there you go. And then that should be good. Go ahead and save this. Go ahead and save the file. Control S, sweet. And now let's go ahead and rerun our Node.js process. So Control C. Oh, stop. Hold on. Control C again for me. All right. So you can Control C, it'll start a new line. So press the up arrow. Boom. So you don't have to type it out all the time. You can always rerun your last command by just pressing the up arrow, and you can cycle through all your previous commands. So you can't really do that in CMD. PowerShell actually will save your command history. All right, so now let's go to Postman and let's see what it does. Also, while you're looking at Postman, look to your left under our file hierarchy there, and let's see if it creates that updated file once you press send. Yeah, so it's not creating it for us. All right, so you can go ahead and cancel. Let's go back to our code. All right, so fs.write file, and you got the fs. Let's go all the way up to the very top. Where actually, no, I have your code here. Give me a sec. Let me do that. Yeah, okay. So you're pulling in the right. Oh, okay. So that's why you did post at the top there. All right. So
actually don't need that.
Post.splice. So you did post.find post. Oh, I'm understanding your code a little bit more here. So post.find, and then you do your post. Why do you have post? That's already defined. If post.id equals PM ID, let user post equal splice, and then we'll put in our user post. So you did a require at the top, which reads our post file for us. So you're using Node.js's require a helper function in a sense, or require. Yeah, you're using require, and that'll read a JSON file for us, or even JavaScript file as well. So that's cool. That's a not an advanced technique or anything like that, but that's a good technique to use. I wouldn't call it advanced because I forgot when I learned it, but I didn't learn anything in like an order. But that is a really good technique.
Oh, and it is advanced? I didn't know. I'm just.
Yeah, I'd call it intermediate. No, I call it intermediate because it's a great way to get around write file or read file. So you don't have to use that, so that's like really good. All right, let me just look at how to write a file here. Writing files with Node.js. If error, return content error. Boom, console log.error, return, file written successfully. All right. Oh, wait. In your file, are you doing a res? Okay, res.status. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I think I know what it is. You're going to have to do a, let's go ahead and look at your JS Fiddle again, and you'll see what I'm talking about. You're going to have to do a res.send because it's not sending anything to your front end. And you don't have to do JSON. So I'm going to take that out because it should automatically understand JSON. In some cases, you will have to actually do that, but in this case, you don't have to. It's like a function that's there, but really you don't have to do that. So I think the problem is that you're not sending anything to the front end. You're just saying the status is 200. I almost think that, to be honest, though, with what I just saw, you shouldn't have to. I find it kind of weird that you have to even do this, but let's do make your line on line 74, copy and paste line 74 from JS Fiddle, and copy and paste that instead of line 91. But I'm also wondering why your write file doesn't actually create the file either.
Yeah, that's what. Because the res.send, yeah, because the front end, that's basically Postman. Postman is the front end. So
updated post. So it's probably something like this here. It could be something like this, and that file. It'd be funny. So go ahead and in your IDE, let's do this before you enter any more code. But I made a fix here. In your IDE, go ahead and press Control C at the bottom there in the PowerShell terminal. So I should kill it, and then just do a dir, or just do a dir, and that will show all your files. So I don't know if there's anything that you don't want in there, but or don't want to
LS.
show. All right, so ls. Okay, that's fine. Oh, okay, so it is. Yeah, why isn't it showing up? That is kind of a bit odd, though. I was expecting possibly to see something there. Do you have write permissions to that? Yeah, you should because you've been saving everything. All right, so let's go back to the JS Fiddle, and you should see on line 72, I made a quick change. So for your file name, just put in like /updated. You don't have to add the dash in the updated post file name. What is today? Today's Wednesday now. It's middle of the week already, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know why I forgot that too. Yeah, path. Yeah, you always got to have the.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, sometimes it should. I don't think that'll fix anything, but I like to just do the small things. And then res. So we're gonna change that line 91 to the line 72, 74 that we have in the JS Fiddle.
So you say 91, make it.
Yeah, just
Okay, so you got
delete that whole.
res.send instead of the status. Okay.
Yeah, just delete
Oh, you
that
got
whole
the
line.
status. Okay, you got the status as is what that is, extension method.
Yeah, so you're gonna extend you're like your chaining functions. So no, just go ahead and delete the whole line, and then just copy and paste what I wrote in there, just to make it a little bit quicker.
All right.
Gregarious giraffe is funny.
Troublesome. Oh.
All right, so that should be good. Go ahead and save it.
Right. Yeah, I ain't gonna hold you. I know you got the bill. It's getting a little late. I think you hit it on the key though. That I gotta read the file first because I actually was kind of thinking that, but I couldn't. I still kind of couldn't wrap my mind. I'm gonna have to look into.
Well, I think I was
I
a
just
little
didn't
bit
think it
wrong.
would be so much just to do just a put method though, because the get and the post wasn't too
wasn't too crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it wasn't crazy.
I don't think so. I was wrong in terms of you weren't reading the file. By doing that require statement at the top, it reads that file and assigns it to a variable. So it's doing that automatically. I didn't see that in terms of your variable definitions at the top. So I was wrong about that. So you are doing that. But I just want to see, I kind of want to see like you actually fix this. I want to see what happens. So let's go ahead and send.
All right.
So I should have returned something by now because that's not a big thing to really do. I wonder what the error is though. Server's up and running. I don't see why.
Yeah. One thing is showing in the console. That's it.
So post.find post. If post is PMID. Do this for me. Go ahead and comment out. Yeah, this is it could be your conditionals here. I'm trying to figure out what could be the problem. But let's go ahead and comment, rewrite your code to take that fs write file, take it outside of that post.find method or that post.find
You saying take it out the post, take it out that entire function.
Yeah, take it out of that little, like, what is that? It's a higher order method or a higher order function. So take it out of there, just cut it out of there, and then comment that whole entire function out because you don't really need it. Actually, you can keep. Actually, you don't even need to you don't need to cut it out. Your write file though, that you need to cut out though. You want to take that out of there, and Control X, and then let's move up above from let's go to line 83. And then Control V, Control S. Let's go down to our terminal, Control C, up arrow, yeah, enter. We don't have any errors. Let's run that. There we go.
You got an error now.
So user post is not defined. So we need to do user post, post.slice. So let's take out that let there where it says let user post, and let's copy that out of that function. Or just, yeah, cut that out. Control X. And then put it above our write file. So what we're doing is simplifying, seeing if there's any issues with your subsequent code or with that post.find, getting ourselves out of that, because I don't know your total code base and I'd have to like kind of debug it line by line. Control S. This is what I do all the time. It's like I just simplify it and go from there. So yeah, so up arrow. See what it do. All right, so in this case, The data argument must be type of string or instance of a buffer. Ah, okay. So the data argument must be type of string. So this is one thing. It wants to write an actual buffer. So write file content is show some content. All right. Alternatively, you could do write file sync. Now, hold on, stay right there. So line 84.
So user post is not.
And you see that
So we do
request
have to
dot.
use. So we do have to stringify it then.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that'll be your request dot body. But your request dot body. Okay, so in that case, your request dot body, yeah, you'll encapsulate it in that stringify like you just did, or like you did earlier.
All right. So do I put that before the callback?
Yeah. So you're just gonna do like
I put a JSON
yeah,
right here.
you'll encapsulate that with your stringify function. So let's you don't have to erase it. I don't know if you. So let's just type in JSON right before it.
Okay.
Yeah, uppercase JSON, JSON dot stringify. Yeah, and then open parentheses, and then go ahead and close it on the other side of that. Right. So that's good. Save. Control S. And let's go ahead and do our thing. The only thing I don't like about what's happening here is this, like, why didn't I get that error beforehand? And that could just be that it's your error, like it's not producing an error. Like it should produce some type of error that tells me that. So I kind of dislike when that happens. Boom, updated post.json. So
sweet. All right, so let's see if I can write it to the file then.
Right. And then what we can do is I'm not sure if
All right, so hold on. Let me study this. Let me see what I had wrong.
Yeah, let's look at your updated post file. Sorry, I'm like directing your study here, but let's look at your updated post.json file and let's see if it dumps everything in there. Because then that should do every single post. All right, and then if we scroll over, is there a way we can beautify that? Or excuse me. And that's what happens when you write it as a string, by the way. It'll do that, which is why I don't like it. Well, one of the reasons why I don't like it.
I'm wondering. Yeah, that's ugly. Look, I'm wondering why I didn't.
It does that because of the way you're writing it in terms of the data that you wrote. But let's scroll over sideways. And there's usually, you can scroll, like if you just hold down the shift key and see, it only writes, it looks like it only writes that one entry, right? Or is that, no, that's only one entry.
Yeah, the console. I don't know. That's kind of weird. That's not.
We wanted it. We programmed it to do that. So if we go back to our index.js.
Okay.
And then line number 86 is what that is. Because we're outputting everything. So we can get rid of line 86 because we don't need that. We use like the console just so we can actually get some type of error or response on server side, and that helps us debug a little bit.
Yeah, but that's not what I had in Postman. That's fine.
Well, in Postman, you didn't return anything except for a message. Or you're talking about your body?
I'm talking about the body.
So all right, let's go back to your put method. In your index.js, and then console. Oh, okay. So you just did a console log. Yeah, you don't have anything. Yeah, you don't have anything that. Well, no. Okay, you did your request.body. Okay, so let's take your request.body that line 81. Let's get rid of that so we don't get that outputted to the console there. Usually I'll take the request.body and put it into actual variable. You do not have to do that, but I'm just saying that's what I usually do. In this case, you have posts, which is already defined. Let me go back in your JS fiddle here. Post require post.json. Okay. So that should be everything
I
in
see
here.
what it is. Okay, so my if post. Okay, so my if post ID, which is I'm using the comparison to the parameter ID. I don't know. I still don't have it completely figured out in my head, but I know this is key because I'm putting in ID 102 in Postman. So for that to trigger, I needed to recognize that I'm using the ID in Postman to trigger for me to manipulate that particular JSON object in the file.
Well, my thought is, why do you have to do a find? Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, if you want to update, right? If you're doing a put to update a single post, then you need to take that post, you need to extract it from. Oh, okay, so you're trying to find the post. Can you in the right hand side of your IDE, can you open up the post.json file so we can see it side by side? Because I just need to see your data structure at the same time. You should be able to move it over. It's the fourth one. Yeah, that one, and then move. Yeah, perfect. All right. So your syntax is user ID and then your ID for your post. Your post is an array. You're running find on that array. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and comment out line 82 all the way to line 86. So we're not going to execute the code that we know writes a file. We don't need that right now because we're going to reincorporate it. And now we're going to break it down and work on just your find statement. So now with find that post, right? We have our post, and then if post.id equals PMID. PMID is the parameter. All right, and then let's just do a quick console log at line 89.
Still.
You know what? I want to see that find. I think with prototype find, let's see if there's two things you can add in there. Index. Perfect. Okay, so I'm looking at the node, the what's it called? Mozilla Developer, and with Mozilla Developer, I can see here that I can do work on the element, the index, and the entire array, plus this argument. So I'm just looking at the. Let's see here. I'm gonna take over screen share again so we can just break this down a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm going to copy this into the chat for others. So here we can see our callback function. So this here, right? We can actually access the element itself, the item that we're actually going through, and we can access the index of that item. So I usually like to use the index because then we can actually do things to it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to switch it back over to you for sharing, all right, or for screen share. And then what we're going to do here is in that console log, or actually in that find statement on line 87, we're going to put a comma and then the letter I. That'll stand for our index. We can even, write it out if we wanted to, but on line 87 where it says posts in there. Oh, also you're reusing variable names. that in some cases is confusing. So let's, instead of using post, we'll use the letter P. Because if in some cases, what you're actually doing, depending on the language, you could actually be calling the word, you can actually be calling post the same
The
thing that
method.
you
You saying
define.
the post method?
No, not the post method, but you see how it's in blue? That means it's a variable. Now, is it reassigning it when it's going into that function? You see on line 87 towards the end in your callback function after find. So you see you import post, and if you highlight that, then okay, so
It's the post JSON. When I hover my mouse over, it's
right,
showing all
you
the
can see the
properties.
object. So
Huh?
what I would tell you to do in terms of just not being confusing, make that just P. Just like, or post find, or found post. Name it something different,
Yeah, I
right?
got it.
So let's take, instead of post, we'll just call it P.
Now I'm gonna have to change that somewhere else, right?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
You say just make it found post. What you want to make it?
Make it P, the letter
Just make it
P,
P.
right? And then let's do a comma,
Okay.
and then I for index.
All right.
All right, cool. So now, if we're in that if statement, now we're gonna do p.id. This is where you make that change.
All right.
Also, you have a triple equal sign. Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, it has to be equal to the value and type as well, right?
Right. Exactly. Now, the thing is our type actually going to be equaled, like the params that ID? Is it even, actually, let's do this. We'll keep it
You
that
want
way,
to just
right?
do
And we'll,
you want to just do the double equal?
no. We'll keep it that way, and we'll see if p.id is a string or is an actual number. Because when you're getting it for params.id, I'm not sure if it's a number. So let's go ahead and console log. In that console log parentheses there, we're going to console log p, and then we're going to do comma, or we're going to do p.id actually, p.id, and then comma, and then we're going to do PM ID. All right, let's go ahead and Control S. And go ahead and run that sucker again, see what happens. There you go. Use that up arrow, man. Makes your life easier.
Yeah, I gotta
Let's
get in the
go.
habit of doing it.
Yeah. And then let's go ahead and send that sucker. Yeah, there we go. It's not even getting to it. Well, that's actually, no, yeah, it's not even getting to it. I think because it's trying to do that type comparison, it's not even getting there. So let's go ahead and take it, put it to double equal.
Okay.
All right. Save, rerun. Boom. So that's the problem. The problem was it wasn't even running that if statement because it was doing a type comparison, because p.id comes off, one of them is coming off as a string versus one of them coming off as an actual number. So that's the difference between triple and that triple equal and double equal.
So I probably had it right. I done switched up the code so many times.
Right. You see what I'm saying? That shit, hey man, that shit get to you, bro. Be like, what the flying? I gotta walk away and all this other stuff.
Man, I done
But yeah,
switched up the code so much. I didn't even know what I was doing anymore. I was just like, I'm done.
now let's finish it off, man, and let's go back to our code and start integrating everything back the way we actually want it. So all that commented stuff from 82 to 86, let's go ahead and copy and paste or cut that and put it in between. There you go.
Okay.
So let's all that 82 to 86. Go ahead and cut that out. Yeah, go ahead and Control X. And then let's go ahead and put it at line 85. Put your cursor at 85.
Control V. Right.
Yeah, well, just put your cursor at 85. Like, just don't highlight console. Cause it's just gonna like, we'll get rid of
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Control V now.
Okay. Come on, man.
Yeah, sticky
Right,
keyboard there. And then let's go ahead and erase that console line. There, we don't need that now. All right, cool. Get rid of that sucker. And let's go ahead and also erase line 92 to 101 because we don't need that either. Because now we got like good clean code here that actually we know works because we've tested it in pieces. Yeah, and we tested it in pieces. And let's get rid of all our other stuff. Here's a trick. Go put your cursor at line 90.
Mm-hmm.
Hold the shift key, press the down arrow. Down. It's opposite. Yeah, there you go. Down, down, down. Right there. And then just no, what? No. Right, there you go. And press delete. Then
Then
it'll
press
mess up.
delete.
Yeah, press delete. The delete key. Are you like on a Mac or something? Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, I don't know if you're on a Mac or something like that. No, you
I
should
got
be.
this
No, you're
Acer.
on
I
Windows.
got a Acer Nitro.
Yeah, no, you're on Windows. I didn't look at your your menu bar there. All right, so and then now we have everything. Let's get rid of line 93 to 96. We don't need that. Actually, no, let's just get rid of let's get rid of 93 to 90. Yeah, 96, that's fine. Because now we don't need that return statement just out there all willy-nilly. So let's just clean up our code while we're in it. Hey, bro, you there? Did I lose you? Oh, shoot. I might have lost him. Yeah, just me. He must have lost his internet. All right, so let's do this. All right, guys. So Richard, I guess when you get back on, man, run your code, and hopefully it works for you. But that'll be the end of the stream. We kind of went a little bit over more than usual, so that's a 3-hour stream, man. That's pretty cool. Guys, let me know if you have any problems like that. As you saw, we broke down a couple of things, and then we did some tests. We can work together on some of the problems that you're having and solve them. I'll probably structure it if I get like more call-ins on problems like that, and then try and like figure it out. That's a more simpler problem, and there's a lot of things that we had to go in there, and I'm just going into a code base that I'm not familiar with. But his code is pretty easy to read and get caught up on, and hopefully I can get good enough to where you guys come with like really complex conditions that I can actually help out. That'd be really cool. As always, guys, thanks for listening, and don't take what I say. If you're not taking what I say with a grain of salt, then you're low on sodium. Make sure you do your research. Look at these things. Look at these functions. Look at the parameters that they have, kind of like what we're dealing with here. So look at all these parameters for the callback function and what it can actually do, and find ways to actually get the information that you need out of it and move forward. As always, thanks for listening. Really do appreciate you guys. And Mr. Dixon, that was fun, man. I really do appreciate you showing up and asking for help. Peace, guys.